All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Scorpion Movement Podcast. My guest today is Travis Chance. He's been in bands like Usurp Synapse, Fax Arcana, some other projects, Rep Seki, if I recall correctly. Many interesting bands, interesting projects, and we're just gonna jump right into it. So, first of all, Travis, as usual on the podcast, I'm gonna give you the guest opportunity to introduce yourself briefly, just so that people get a better idea of what you're about, what you've been doing. And then from there, I guess the first question I'd ask so that we can just uh, set the stage for a nice free-flowing conversation is, how did you actually first get into music? I think that's the most fundamental question because I find that many people have pretty interesting stories about that you wouldn't really always expect from the genres that they're associated with. So I think that's pretty much the best place to start here then, those types of questions. And yeah, go ahead.
I mean, my name is Travis. Yeah, I'm 47 years old. Um, I am a professional board game designer, is what I do for work. I've got an 11-year-old daughter. I live in Indiana. I was born and grew up in Florida. Lived other places. I lived in New York City. I played drums for a while for the majors like Columbia, Def Jam, and I toured in really cheesy, not great bands that were infinitely more successful than anything that I've ever created. I've gotten to do some neat stuff in my life. Like I played in it with a band that opened for the Buzzcocks for 3 months. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, I mean, like, never would have thought that we would be playing again. Usurp would be playing again, but like we randomly the interview that you mentioned, the chopping it up hardcore, and
Yeah.
then I went and I saw Jerome Stream, who we went on tour with and did a record with, and it kind of made me want to do it again, and then it just happened. Oddly, we've been doing the band this time around for almost as long as we did the band for the first time. Well, I say that, but it's not necessarily true because there was an earlier incarnation of the band where it was me and John are the only people that were in that version of the band, and then Dean and Dustin, who were the original guitar player and bass player, weren't in it. The later version of the band that kind of took off. Well, I guess if you want to say took off for for for
Yeah, it
punk
took off in
hockey
our
music.
hearts. Yeah.
Yeah, it took off for the nine people who gave a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so how did I get into music? So
Yeah.
I was 15 years old and moved to Kentucky to a really small town called
Inside.
Scottsville,
Yeah.
and I lived with my aunt for a year. And I have two cousins, one of which who was my age, one of which was younger than me. One played guitar and one played bass, and so I learned to play the drums. And back then, I was listening to like I thought like Pearl Jam Versus was the best album in the world, or Alice in Chains Dirt, or
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins, things like that. I
That,
liked stuff like
yeah.
that. And we had like kind of a bad, uh, I don't know, grunge band called Yellow. Uh, Wonderful name. Have you ever seen those semi trucks and then they say yellow
Yeah.
on them, but it's on an orange sign?
Yeah. 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 I know
So
exactly what you're talking
that's
about. Yeah.
why
Okay.
we,
That's
yeah.
fine.
So we were
Yeah.
like
So that's
yellow,
where
but
yellow,
it's not,
yellow.
it's not yellow, it's orange. So yeah, I did that. And then after that, I moved back to Florida. And then I ended up living in Orlando where there was just like this incredible music scene.
Oh, really? Oh,
hmm And then I played my band, the Top 40 UFOs,
yeah.
played in the high school talent show. And Don, who is in Usurp, his band Aneurysm played in the high school talent show, and that's how we met. And then we have been friends ever since then. And he has been in Usurp, and really, I would say Don is the real talent of the band. The weird, squealy, abrasive,
Yeah.
high end guitars is all him.
Yeah.
Not to
He
say
had
the
his
other
own.
guys aren't talented. He's
Yeah.
just like his guitar sound. I think really is what
Yeah.
is part of what makes the band
Definitely.
identifiable.
Definitely.
So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, not to interrupt, but he actually, because I'm a guitarist, so especially, I mean, that's my main instrument. I play some other instruments as well. But I like the guitar the most. It's what I started with for the most part. And yeah, his sound was always really interesting to me. Is it true that he used an alternate tuning? Like not just
he came up with his
he
own
came up with
tuning.
his own tuning. Yeah.
Yeah,
What was that about? Just to facilitate the sound, or I mean, is it because the use
I,
of
I
guitar?
mean it.
unconventional
Yeah.
stuff.
When you sort of
So,
started out, we were kind of more like the first. We did a split 7 inch with a band called Emotion Zero, and we were kind of
yeah.
more metally
Oh, metal.
hardcore. So Don and I went to high school with Reversal of Man. So with one of the
Yeah.
guys from Reversal of Man, and I happened to go on a field trip and sit next to the one of the first guys in the original lineup of
Yeah.
Reversal Man named Joe Camacho, and he had like some cheesy ass like Strife or Victory Records, collegiate font. But he was
Well,
back then. It was kind of like into this heavy, rock kind of music, but people dressed like kind of hip hoppy almost. It was weird. So he was wearing like a
yeah.
big
The,
hoodie,
the
and he had like his hair was shaved on, kind of like here was like shaved on like a say like a one or something. And he just like put some headphones on. He played me Frail, and I was like, whoa, I like this.
oh
And but
yeah.
up until then, I had liked like a lot of indie rock, like Archers Aloaf and Pavement and stuff
Yeah,
like
those
that.
types of
That's
bands.
what
Yeah.
I was into. And then he played me some Victory Records, like Judge or something. And I was just like, this is awful. And no, don't come beat me up, Judge. But I didn't like that kind of chugga chugga tough guy stuff. But
Yeah,
I
the
liked
tough
the
stuff.
high end stuff, and I liked Reversal. And then so I kind of grew up in that scene where like seeing Reversal was a common thing, or like Inhumanity would drive down from South Carolina and play a lot of shows, Palatka, and Don and I, he was in the band Top 40 UFOs, but I quit. And then we ended up doing like projects. We did a band called The Greater Mind of Teddy Duchamp. Teddy Duchamp
Yeah,
is like
never heard of
the
that one. Yeah.
there's like a tape floating around out there. It was actually like some of this stuff you can hear like proto usurp. It's like weird all over the place, but it kind of like it did like would switch from like because there was emo wasn't a word back then, it was melodic, and then
Yeah,
Don and I
melodic
really
folk,
like Sunny Day Real Estate, like the Pink
that type of
album,
stuff.
and then we just kind of started getting into playing in the kind of weirder bands, and we played in this band with no vocals called Slipped and Stumble, and then we started playing with lots of bands, so like we played with like Promise Ring and like Mineral, and we
Oh
played with
wow,
Murphy's
mineral.
Law, and so
That's
like yeah, I
crazy.
mean
Yeah.
I've played with like Joan of Arc, like I've played with lots of bands that I still really like. I mean, I saw at the drive-in, and like 10 people were in the room, and they were dressed like greasers or 1950s greasers or something.
Crazy.
That scene was awesome. And then I moved to Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I started Usurp, and then, but the original Usurp was like the bass player wanted to play in like an emo band, and the guitar player wanted to play in a black metal band, and John was in kind of he was in a hardcore band, but kind of like an emo, like a Gurn Blandstein kind of band, and he's probably gonna hate me for saying that, but and then I wanted to play in like Inhumanity or something,
Those
like
those types of bands.
into the
Yeah.
Century Party type band. So we were like a band that with no identity really. And then when Don came up to visit, because Don was originally supposed to move to Indiana, and then Don came up to visit, and then our guitar player Dean moved back to Florida, and he we played a show. We just made up a band called the Babysitters Club, and we like played with Usurp a house show. And then Don ended up moving up after that, and then he was in the band, and then we were Tony, who ended up playing bass, was a roommate of ours. So we ended up Dustin ended up not being in the band anymore. The original best bass player. He's a very incredibly talented bass player, by the way. Dustin and Dean, also really really cool guy, like super into like crazy black metal shit. And the
Any
band
black
just
metal
kind
bands?
of
Any black metal bands in particular? Because that's I actually come more so from metal. I might be more
I
familiar
mean, I
with
don't know
the
what he's into, but I mean, like he was
um,
listening to
yeah.
like when we were in high school. I met him before I met Don. I've known Dean since 7th grade, and he was
Oh
like listening
wow.
to like King Diamond and
Oh that
Emperor and Danzig, and I know Danzig's not black metal, but
no black
like
metal.
he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
listening to like stuff.
Okay. So he was a
And
metal
I was
like a metal guy. He was basically a metalhead, more of a metalhead relatively.
yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. I think he has the. Does he have? He might have like the Danzig skull on his chest or something. I
Oh,
think
that's
I can't
crazy.
remember.
Yeah,
Um, but the band kind of came together after that. Like That was when it was me, Tony, John, Don, and then we added Brandon, who Brandon was in kind of like a one like a band like Corn.
Oh, like a new metal band, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he was in a
That's
band
sweet.
called Short Bus, and they played our house, and like no, but he was like good, and he was a cool guy, but he wasn't like a punk kid, and Tony wasn't really like a punk rock guy either. He was kind of, I don't know. He was like a high school wrestler champion and shit. But the band really kind of started to come together. And then Antonio, the second singer, he was in really cool bands like I Am the Resurrection and the State Secedes. And we met them. They toured and they played our house. And like, sorry, I'm kind of going all over the place, but
Yes,
we lived in this dentist office
identity. Yeah, yeah.
in Lafayette, and we just had house shows. And because Indianapolis is so close to,
That,
at the time, Columbus, Ohio was a really big scene
yeah,
because
big.
like
I've
more
heard
of the
of it.
music, yeah,
Yeah,
more of the
oh,
music
that's where more than music was. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I've
and there was
seen
a
some
lot of really
footage.
good
Yeah,
bands there,
yeah.
like Remington, and like I'm can't think of anything else at this moment, but we were close enough to like Cincinnati and Nashville and all these other places, and obviously Chicago. A lot of people wouldn't roll through Indy, but because and Lafayette's a college town, it's Purdue University, so we lived in this dentist office that was in front of a frigging baby cemetery. I'm not even kidding you. It was a part of the cemetery where they bury babies, and there's a
Well,
statue of a baby like reaching to heaven in our backyard.
I've never
And
even. I didn't know that baby cemeteries existed. That was
we didn't
specifically a
either.
thing. That's fuck.
But we lived in this
So
place and
dark.
it was
Yeah,
like zoned
yeah.
as a business so we could practice, and we started having house shows, and that's how I met JP from
Justin
Locust. And
Pearson. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then from there we just, I mean, every band you could think of, His Heroes Gone broke up in our house. Like, so we kind of did a reverse marketing thing where we brought the bands to us and then we would open for them, and we had a pool at the time because we were a local band, and we did free house shows, or we charged $5 or something, or donations for the bands, because back then that's what it was. But we would have like these really great house shows, and then we'd give people a place to stay too. They could stay in
Oh
our
wow. So
house.
people would just stay there. Yeah, it's
Yeah, and
cool.
then that's kind of because of that we networked with a lot of people, and then we ended up meeting people, and from there we ended up being on the radio at NYU, and that's how we met Seisha, and we ended up touring with
Oh
Seisha.
wow. Yeah, because
And Witching Hour Records happened to be in
oh
Indianapolis at
yeah,
the time, and then we met because we played the most shows we ever played with was with Ray Spannon, who
race band. Also a
I
Midwest
don't
band. Just another kind of
Ray Spannon's amazing. Like they're it's
yeah.
one of those things, like we played with them so much that I didn't appreciate how cool they were, and then after I got away from it and I went back and I listened to it, like so original and just cool. And
Yeah,
like we
I
did a
haven't really
tour.
listened to I haven't really listened to that much of the material, but I saw some of the footage from the Pick Your Poison DVD that you guys put out a couple of years ago, which was, I mean, hilarious DVD about it. We can talk about that later. And yeah, they seem pretty cool, but I'm not that familiar with their sound though. I just saw a couple of minutes of footage. I mean, it was chaotic as can be, but I mean, what's their sound like? You said they had a cool front man. He was a
They had
pure,
two. So they had
pure
Chris Williams, who was the head of the guy who
yeah,
did Witching Hour, which is this amazing. I mean, I don't know if any band had as many records on Witching Hour as we did. We did so many. And then Mike Anderson, who is probably one of the best, most unique frontmen musicians I've ever seen in my life. Really cool guy. And we played with him a lot. And back then I was kind of a jerk, and like, I'd give him a hard time and stuff. But now I look back and like I'm like, man, those guys were really doing something different. And they were just heavy. They were, I mean, I don't even really know how to describe them. Like they were kind of more like a Discord, like DC, like
one of
they were
those.
punk, but they were like they were doing something that no one else was doing. Like I'll tell you that much, and probably still hasn't done. Like they're a very original band.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
so
they
yeah,
did they
we
have elements of free improv? Because on if you go online on Rate Your Music, it's just this music cataloging site. I think one of their releases is listed as free improvisation for the secondary genre. I don't know if that's accurate.
Mike would
It's
just
like
kind of like talk and go crazy, and like Mike kind
it's
of had this like almost hip hop type thing going on, and then he would just like get really into it. and he had this he had this really crazy voice, and he's like this kind of big, tall, curly, red-haired guy who has kind of
Yeah.
like a like silly, like almost kind of like a like hey man, like he talks, but he was just such a killer. And I bumped into some of these guys over the years. Like randomly, the bass player was living in Tampa when I was, or living in St. Pete when I was living in Tampa, and we ended up like bumping into this like girls rock, like summer girls play band and punk bands camp for like
What
young women, to
is
like
that
build self.
School of Rock, the franchise School of Rock? Is
It's
that
kind of like that, but it
it's
was
kind of
called
like
girls rock. Yeah,
oh, Girls Rock. Okay,
for
yeah,
girls. Yeah. And at the
yeah.
time, I had two stepdaughters, and I have a daughter, so we like went to this thing, and he happened to be there. But yeah, so we were, it was weird because a lot of this stuff is like, people will ask me questions, and I know I'm kind of all over the place here, but
It's fun. Yeah, I
we were
like
in the
it.
right place at the right time in a lot of ways. And you don't know that when it's happening. You don't know that
Yeah,
like some of the best times of your life are happening then.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But we were like, Usurp was like a cult. Like we all lived together, we all worked at the same Papa John's, and we practiced. I used to wear 20-pound leg weights every day when I would deliver pizzas and then that's how
But
like I do double bass with a single
what?
bass
What's that for? 20-pound leg weights. I've never. That's
strong so that I could do double
what?
bass on a single bass,
Oh wow.
and, which I can still do even at 47, which is, um, but we were like, that's all we cared about was the band,
Yeah, that
you know.
was the main thing.
Girlfriend stuff then, and my girlfriend was just like, whenever I'm not doing the band, I'll talk to you, but please leave me alone. And if I'm focusing on the band, and we were like friends, and we all we did was it was, and that changed with time, but there was a point where we all lived together, and it was like we were like some weird version of, I don't know if you know the musician Sun Ra. We were like an
Yeah, Sun Ra.
army or something. We like lived
Yeah,
in the same, like we were just all up in each other's shit in this really weirdly codependent, blood brothers, not the band, but like the concept kind of
yeah. The
way.
concept of it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, and it was great, man. It was a really fun time, and like it was really kind of pre-internet, pre-cell phone
yeah.
world. We'd go on tour and we'd use a map. We'd call people on landline and pay long distance charges, and we were like driving places, and we had no clue if when we got there that the people would do what they said they would do. So
Like
like that, like that gym where we play in the boxing
yeah,
ring, like
Munoz Gym. Yeah.
we had no idea that was, that was just like we showed up with some weird ass show. We didn't know that was gonna happen, or
Wasn't that one ran by a guy who would book them ahead of time though? I forgot his name, but it was a gym that was basically converted into a makeshift DIY venue. Isn't that the story kind of?
I
Is
don't I
that
don't really I don't really remember, man. I don't know how old
oh
you are, but
wow.
that was for me. I was probably 21 years old, 22 when I
Yeah.
did that. So I was,
Yeah, you just never be.
more than half my life ago. And I mean, Don, our guitar player, he remembers all kinds of stuff that like the rest of us, I probably have the worst memory. But we played, I mean, I think we played like 120 shows as that band, and like
Totally. Yeah.
we played festivals, we played all kinds of stuff, and we did a bunch of like pranky, hijinky kind of and mess with people stuff back in the day, and which is part of the legacy of the band. It's also kind of childish. I mean, some of the stuff's funny. It's stuff you
Yeah,
couldn't probably do today.
definitely.
Um,
Yeah. I still find some of it to be funny, but I can see how nowadays it might not fly, in the same way with certain types of people and everything, how times have changed and all of that.
People
But
are
yeah, I still
sensitive
find
now.
yeah, I
People are
still
sensitive.
find some of it to be funny. But to just go back, well, first of all, okay, there's so much to touch on here, obviously, many different threads that all intersect. But I like that
I don't know if
style
you
of
noticed, I have ADHD. I don't know if that's helpful to know right now, but
no, I mean it's actually well, it's good for podcasting because I told you I don't like. I was mentioning this earlier. I just don't like the very linear A B style versus
sure,
question
sure,
answer.
sure.
I don't vibe with that at all. It's not really not my style as an interview. But to just intersect some of these threads because I can see how it all connects. First of all, when it comes to Munoz Gym, I just because you said we didn't even you guys didn't really know that there was even a major show happening there. It was more on the spot, not on the spot, but it was more impromptu and all of that. I just thought that it had a bit of a reputation. I mean, I wasn't really old enough to be there during the peak, I came onto this probably afterwards, but I thought that it had a bit of reputation as a punk space or a DIY space because if you go on YouTube,
Maybe.
there's shows of the Locust, but a very early incarnation of Locust before the costumes, the weird insect
Sure,
costumes.
sure.
I was playing in maybe 1995 or something like that, 19 late 90s, and then there's a ton of other footage of different types of bands like that. So I thought that would have been more well known, but you're saying that you guys didn't even really know about that. You
I don't think
just
we knew that. We didn't know we were playing in a boxing ring. I mean, and that seems to be the video that everyone remembers the
yeah,
most
that's the
of
one. Yeah.
us. It's the one that everyone remembers, and that was like a really fun tour, and that was a funny day because like we were staying in a hotel, and back then we'd almost always crash at people's houses, but this time we sprung for a hotel, and like we're all sleeping on the floor like animals and stuff, and me and Brandon went swimming and we got so sunburned, insanely sunburned. And we thought we're
Yeah.
both in the van, like, man, we look good as hell. And then we get to LA after this, the day after that show. And like it was like, don't touch me. I barely can wear a shirt. And then in the video, the Usurp, the Pick Your Poison, when you see our guitar player take his guitar up and he breaks it, it's because
Yeah.
people are pushing him and it's hitting his sunburn. And he lied and said that the crowd broke his guitar because he wanted the band to pay for his guitar. But that's why that's in there in that slow motion. It's we're catching him lying about breaking his guitar. But yeah, those I mean, there's a lot of like really amazing. Like we played a show in Half Moon Bay with the band that ended up becoming, I think they were called Staircase, and then those guys went on to do other stuff. But like, that's where Portraits of Past is from. I
Oh,
think
for
like outside of San Francisco, we just played some random house like with Seisha, and Usurp's always had like really short set. I mean, like we
yeah.
just got back from tour and we played 20 songs and with samples in like about 26 minutes, 30 minutes. And the samples are long, man. They're like 2 3 minute samples. So we there's a video of like Billy from Seisha playing drums and Don and they're playing Metallica covers
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in this
It's for
house.
yeah, it's for Whom the Bell Tolls. Is that one of the songs that you played?
Yeah,
Yeah, because there's a
yeah,
video
yeah.
online that says Seisha feat Usurp Synapse for Whom the Bell Tolls. And yeah, I think you're in that video, but I couldn't really tell at
I'm
first.
I'm in the
Oh,
crowd. I don't yeah, I was like
were you the guy
watching.
who's kind of like eating the mic? No, it's kind of a weird description, but there
No. There's like a I saw
there's
a
a
picture of me pop up Hot Cross's first show, and I'm like, back then I weighed like 110 pounds, and I'm a real pretty tall guy, and I'm wearing a shirt that just says "Seisha sucks," and I saw people like circulating this photo, and they were like, "Who the hell is this kid? This kid is an asshole," and it was like, it's just, of course, it's me sitting there trying to bug people. We would make shirts like we played a fest where Orchid was the headliner, and that was like right after Chaos as Me came out, and we made Chaos as Us shirts for
yeah,
that fest.
I've heard
And then
about
like I
that.
walked up, and Jay just looked at me. He's like, "You suck, dude." like walked away. Like
But you played
always with
shows,
the.
but you played many shows with Orchid though. Is that correct? They were
I
band
think
that
so. The band we
uh,
played the most with, other than Race Band, we played with Locust. We played with Arab on Radar a bunch of times.
yeah,
Um, we did that. We did a 28-day tour uh, with Jerome's Dream and
yeah,
Race Band. I mean, people don't now. People go out for 3 days and they call it a tour.
yeah.
It's
That's
like
kind of
like they play
pathetic.
two shows near their house and one show that's 3 hours away and they're on tour. But which is
Yeah,
ridiculous. I mean,
yeah,
we're
that's
nine
nuts.
of us in a van, not knowing what the hell was going on for a month.
Yeah, and that
Um,
was it was a Jerome Stream and race band and the Pick Your
yeah, pick
Poison.
your poison. Yeah.
Yeah. So then to ask you, so how did that video actually come about? Because I think that's what a lot of people remember nowadays, and that's what
So
people can
John,
access
John,
today.
the singer and now the singer and bass player of Usurp is he went to school for video, so and like
Oh, yeah,
cinematography. So he did that. John, I don't know if you've seen our Instagram account. We have all these like weird videos with like 1950s educational
yeah, yeah,
stuff. John makes all those, and we're thinking about incorporating more video into our set. We tried to do more lights on this last one, and I think we're going to change the video. But John made that. And it's much longer. That the one that's on the internet is a shortcut. There's a much longer, like 30-ish minute
30 minutes.
video,
Yeah,
but the one that is posted is the shorter cut. Yeah, I think it's the more PG cut because there's a bunch of vile stuff in there that we were saying and running around and doing that doesn't fly anymore. So it's the
I can do
culturally sensitive, up to date
that.
version of the video.
Is that why you guys didn't post a longer version? Is that the main reason why, or was there just
I think
something else?
so. Yeah, I'm pretty
But
sure. I mean, there's some of the stuff's like, I mean, like I was really just, I mean, that video really is kind of just me being annoying in a bunch of cities. I'm the guy with the silver mask on at the start of the
yeah, yeah.
video and the megaphone, and then I'm like harassing the guys in the band. I was giving Jeff a really hard time from Jerome's. I mean, like that's like honestly, it's like stuff I regret, like because Jeff and Eric and back Nick, who was the guitar player back, they're great guys. I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful people. So I don't want to. I don't like the idea that people are like seeing me be disrespectful to them and stuff. But you know, it was a long time ago, and it's the
It's
unfortunate
yeah.
way men show love to each other is by being awful to one another,
I mean,
making
yeah,
fun of each other.
yeah. I didn't think it was that disrespectful. I mean, I mean, to me, it's funny, but I'm also a bit younger, so because
Yeah,
I'm
that's an
probably
11-minute video. Imagine being that guy for a month having to deal with that nonsense every day.
yeah.
Being, you
What
know,
was there was a moment in that video in which I think you guys were next to some house and you're trying to imitate Jeff screaming. You're like, huh? I can't do it because it's
yeah.
too high pitched. Yeah. Was that at a show after a show with some other bands?
That was in LA. Like I
Oh,
believe that was in LA outside the near. Like we were kind of killing time before we went to the PCH, which
oh
is the
yeah.
show where the girl's looking through the hole into the
Oh
venue, and she
yeah.
says she doesn't have enough money. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think we were just kind of killing. But I mean, that was a moment where I was like literally trying to ask him about the band. It seems like I'm messing with him, but I was actually trying to like figure out. 'Cause I think drums is great. I mean, honestly, I think like I've never really felt like Usurp is really a hardcore band. I don't really think we fit at all with. I don't understand like when you go to Wikipedia and you look up screamo, like why we're listed as one of the
Yeah. Yeah, I completely
creators of screamo. How?
yeah, yeah.
We had like that
No,
one that CD, This Endless Breath. We have like one record where it was kind of more pretty stuff, and the rest of it. I mean, we're probably more of like a power violence band or mathcore band, or I mean, I say we're art punk is what I say we are.
yeah. I
But
mean, genre labels are pretty weird and they're not that precise. I think people sometimes get too hung up on that, but I have always been confused by the fact that if you go on Wikipedia, it says screamo. I mean, it lists other genres as well, but I think as of now, in the present moment, that's pretty much the first genre anyone will see. Just say, oh, Usurp Synapse is a screamo band from Lafayette, and I see other people nowadays calling you screamo. I remember even there was it's funny because I live in Miami. I've been here for a very long time. We don't really have that much of a scene for this type of music, but we have some venues like Ramps.
we played
And I
one of
think,
our best shows, dude.
yeah,
I would say
I
top
was,
three shows of
dude,
all times was
I
that
was
show at
actually,
Grams.
I was ready to make it, but just something happened and I couldn't go. But I really wanted to go. I was going to go with a friend of mine actually, and I saw that. So you played that show there, and it's actually an amazing venue. I've been there many times. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's one of the best venues that we have in Miami because it's just not known for this type of music at all. So it's nice to have those rare spots that can provide you with an outlet. But I remember there was a video that someone else posted of you actually being interviewed by this guy. He had longer
Oh
hair.
yes,
You
young
remember that
kid.
one? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's I don't because I don't know that guy at all. I don't really have any context, but I assume he also had his own kind of was that for some type of show like this? It was just because he
he was
interviewed
just. I
you and
think
was
he was. I think it was like a
like
high school kid, and he just
a high
wanted to
schooler.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, wanted to know about. He was really nice. I mean, it's weird. Like we played the Shake Cafe in San Diego. Is the last show we played, and these
yeah,
kind of young guys that I think they were like 18, 19 years old, and they were asking us all these questions about. I mean, it feels like they're asking us questions like, "What was it like to fight in World War II?" type stuff, and I'm just like, "What was it like? There's no internet." And then they'd be like, "What was this true? Is this really the reason why this song is called this?" And I'm like, all of our song titles are inside jokes, all of them, or they're
yeah,
either meant to be they're meant to be vaguely offensive, or they are inside joke.
yeah,
Um, like the whole band, like Usurp's whole ethos is really like when we would play, like talked. We never talked about our personal politics. We never talked about what the songs were about. We did, and then it got to a point where we were just like, man, we shouldn't even say anything. So we just stopped talking. And then, like, especially if you listen to the Hassan split, like those songs are crazy, dude. Like those
yeah,
songs have like 12 parts in 30 seconds with like insane time. So the band would just face me because they'd have to watch me to know where the hell we were going to go. And so we just became almost this like really weird, almost impersonal band. And then we started kind of joking with that. We're like, we did an interview and I was like, I'll only do the interview if you can invert our name, like, so it looks right if you hold it to a mirror. And then the person was like, I don't know, we can't do that. Then we'd have to like change the typesetting and I was like, well, then we won't do the interview. And then we added a period to our name, and then we were
Oh
the
wow.
Usurp Synapse for the period. So we just,
Yeah.
and it was all like inside joke stuff to just be difficult, like to be funny, a little nuance, like this was like something that mattered when it really was something that didn't matter. But
Uh,
the sound of the band, I mean, like, I honestly, I mean, like, if I had to pick a bands that I feel like we had the most in common with, I'd say Arab Radar and
yeah,
Jerome's
definitely.
Dream. I don't think we really sounded like any of the bands we played
Yeah, I'm
with.
trying to think of. I was gonna bring this up later because I actually have some insider knowledge about this band. It's kind of it's funny, but I haven't always shared it because I just wasn't sure if I should do that. But to me, the band that actually is probably the closest, with some exceptions. Because, well, you mentioned the Locust earlier. I think I mean, they're not completely the same because I think their influences were probably a little bit different. They were coming more so from that West Coast sound, and also the vocal style is completely different. It's a bit more because they scream, but it's not really like the types of screams that are in Usurp because it's closer almost to a snarl. You know what I'm saying? More of that blood brother style, where it's more like yappy. I don't know how to describe it, but it's not quite the
No, no,
same.
I mean, yeah,
But
they're
I thought
snide, they're smug, like,
yeah, it's like, sometimes it sounds like a like a baby just squealing or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So Usurp didn't really have that styles. It's a bit more mid-range in terms of the vocals, I think, the harsh vocals. But I always thought that they seemed like a point of comparison because they also had the keyboards. But they didn't use the keyboards in a conventional way where it's, playing these interludes or more melodic passages. It's just this very aggressive kind of sci-fi swooshy synth sound. It was always the
yeah.
synth. So I thought maybe that could that be a point of comparison? I mean, I think you mentioned that you took some influence from them, and you might have even played a show with them. Is that correct? The Locust, is
With
that?
you, with Locust,
Yeah, is that true that you?
we played lots of shows with
Oh,
Locust
you played many
over
shows
the
with
years.
Locust.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Justin's a buddy. I mean, like,
yeah.
he's a
He's
buddy. We played with Def Club about a year and a half ago. We did 3 shows with Def Club, and it was really cool. The first show we played, he was just like, "Whoa, I would have never thought that we'd be seeing these guys again."
yeah.
And he always encouraged me to stick with that band because I like got into the VSS, and then all I wanted to do was play like dark wave shit, and he's just like, "Dude, stop! Please stop trying to be like the VSS and just do the shit you were doing before. It's way better." Um, but I mean, we had keyboards, but it was more like just to fill up the gaps kind of stuff. And then we ended up having an organ player at the end, a guy who
Organ.
played keyboard named Mike, who was in Rep Seki. He played keyboard for the band was a 7 piece. We're like a fucking the Mighty Boss Tones or something. It was ridiculous. There was way too many of us. Um, but yeah, I mean, the keyboard was just kind of there to be an effect.
Yeah.
Like it was just
I mean, I think that it sounds cool, and I think that's what differentiates you from the other bands at the time. Because even if you look at a band like Jerome Stream, I think it sounds different in the sense that, I mean, you guys have lots of dissonant passages with the guitars playing these when those types of chords. I think that's really augmented and enhanced by the keyboards, just because they have that high pitched sound. It's like when, just wailing at the same time. So I think that the keyboards are pretty cool, and I think maybe that's why I thought of the Locust. I think you guys also had two vocalists as well. Is that true? Like two guys doing trade-off screams. Is that?
Yeah,
I
we
think
still do.
you
We still do, but
still do,
now they
yeah.
actually are. Before they were screaming, like when Antonio joined the band, he just joined the band, and we're just like grab a mic and scream. We don't give a shit. Like just whatever, because he was driving us on tour. It was his van, and then we asked him to join the band because we liked him as a person, and he like his personality fit into the band. He was like a friend, and that was we've always been more of a vocals optional band. I think I love what Antonio's voice is doing with his voice now. And I think John's scream, like when John really screams it, we call it the wildcat. That's what we've always called it. But his
Yeah,
scream is so brutal. It's like blood curdlingly brutal
yeah,
scream. It's cool. But he does more shouty vocals now. He still will scream occasionally, but he does more shouty vocals. And Antonio does this weird heavy reverb. If you listen to like the record we have, like Polite Grotesqueries or that Missouri Executive Order 44 split we just did, you can hear Antonio. The thing I say is it sounds like he's being killed by a black hole and they're recording it. He's just like his it sounds like his voice is like pitch bended or some pitch bent or like it's slowed down or you know what I mean? Like it's tuned down or something. I don't know how he does it. It's cool. But yeah, but now here in the now we're in the same situation where we're playing well these a lot of these bands got back together. Jerome's is obviously different because they wrote a bunch of new material, but a lot of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
bands are doing kind of the victory lap thing, like where they got back together and they're just playing all their old stuff and they're not really playing
Yeah,
new stuff.
they're not writing new material, kind of like Seisha, I believe. They're probably another example of this, right? Because I think they reunited recently after a long hiatus, but it doesn't look like they intend to write new material. It's just playing songs from the early 2000s, basically, on that one
Yeah,
retrospective. On that one album, what's it called? A retrospective or something like that. But with the two vocals, so what is Antonio exactly? Because he's the guy with it's more brown hair, it's like darker hair. Is
he's
he the
got the
guy?
longer hair. John's
Yeah.
got the black hair.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. All right. So I think I mixed it around. But one of the guys in the videos, for instance, if you look at Munoz Gym, and if you look at the split that you did with Hisani Saba, I think you played a lot of some of those songs at least at that set, the Munoz Gym set. It sounds like there's one guy who's doing, I think, most of the screams, and it's in that mid range. It's not super high pitched like drum scream, for
Mm.
example. But then what's the other guy doing? Because I just can't. I mean, I wouldn't say that the recording quality is lo-fi. It's not really lo-fi. I think that term gets misused and thrown around a lot where it doesn't apply.
I don't think
But
Antonio's not
I'm
on those
extremely.
records though.
Oh,
So
he's not
Antonio,
on those. Oh, he's not on the
no,
records at
no, he
all.
might have done
Oh,
it
okay.
live, but he's not on the records.
Oh, so
His
he's just
first
not
stuff
okay.
he did was
Yeah.
we were going to do an album called ATM Diatribe, which is on the discography, and he was on some of that stuff. And yeah, so his voice is Antonio. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you what he was doing in those videos, to be honest. Like when we play live, when the engineer says, "What do you want to hear?" I just say, "I want to hear Don, and I want to hear the bass, and I don't want to hear the other
Oh, really?
guitar, and I
Well,
don't want to hear the vocals at all."
why
Like
is that exactly? You just don't. It doesn't really help you, or
my job in the band is like not to sound dorky, is like I'm kind of the composer of the band. So a lot of the like, wouldn't it be cool if so like how we write songs, one of the ways we write songs is like I'll record audio memos. Like I'll just be in the car and I'll be like and then I'll send that to John and then John will lay
yeah,
down a bass line and then Don does his crazy shit. And then we now have Brian. But a lot of the stuff, if I'm not the one coming up with the hook, then I'm saying like only do because like a lot of like we did a lot of threes, like three counts, and like a lot of the time changes and stuff are suggestions from me. A lot of the writing was me and Don, like our because Don and I have made music together for 22 years, so
mm.
we've known each other for a really long time. Sorry, 32 years.
Oh wow, 32. Yeah,
32
that's
years.
crazy.
32 years we've been making music
That's
together.
insane.
So like when the rest of us get to practice, like Don and I speak like this language. Don will be like da 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 ba ba da da da
Alien,
da da, and
alien type
Don
of
will just be
language. Yeah.
he'll just like immediately first try do something really cool, and then John has been in the band long enough that he knows how to do it. Brian is new to the band and he's like, what the fuck is going like but Brian is amazing. Brian's the newest guy in Usurp. He was in Maracate. He plays in this really cool band called Idiot right now.
Yeah.
He played in a band called Conjurer.
Oh yeah.
The other
Yeah.
guys do other band stuff. Me and Don don't do anything else. So I just do this. I
Yeah.
just do use. I don't
I mean,
really have
it
time.
seems like it's a lot of work to even just focus on one band. I've been in a couple of bands before. I just couldn't really imagine. I know some guys who do two bands at once, three bands at once because they like all of these different genres and they want to explore, but I just couldn't really imagine doing that personally. It just seems like so much work. I mean, even being in
Well, what
one
I
band,
say is if
and then
every one of your bands is your side project, you don't have a main project.
yeah, yeah,
But like
exactly.
John plays
Yeah,
in a band called Displacer and they're like mega active. Like they play all the time. And then Idiot plays a lot. And then he was in a couple, I think he was in another band, another couple bands. But no, I mean the guys we have are great, but the way we write songs it's really weird. And because we all live all over the place now, we'll kind of just get
Yes.
together. Like the last time when we wrote these songs for the Missouri, we just got together in this lake cabin and we played music for 2 days, and that's what came out. Um, we play a song. We play a song. It's our first song now. It's not been recorded on anything, but like that song, like we tried to write it over, like sending files and stuff, and then we got together and it started with me playing this bass line, and like the first thing that the guy said was like, dude, this sounds dumb as shit, and I was like, you're wrong. And then Don started playing it, and then they're like, oh my god, this thing crushes. And I mean, I think it's like one of the best things we've ever written, but it's just how, you know, I can't read music. I play by ear. I
But
play bass. I could pick up a guitar and noodle and figure out how to play the root notes of pretty much anything that's like, not super complicated. But I think the way that we go about writing the songs is really cool. So, my job is like I'm like the conductor kind of
conductor
guy
kind of,
in the
yeah.
band.
Yeah.
John is, playing bass and singing. And on the older songs, he was just the singer. So he's doing like a lot of work. I do samples now too. Like we started doing
Samples.
samples. Don plays guitar, Brian plays guitar, Antonio sings. And I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I think for a bunch of almost 50-year-old guys, we're doing all right,
Yeah. And who was doing bass back in the day? There's a guy with black
Tony,
hair. His name's Tony.
Tony,
Yeah.
yeah. We all had black
And-
hair.
yeah, and that's the
Tony,
guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the
Tony
guy who was,
Dreyer.
and you said he was the wrestler, right? He
Yeah,
he
he ended
he.
up being like an MMA fighter or UFC fighter, and I think he teaches martial arts now. He lives in San
Oh,
Francisco.
that's cool. Yeah. So did
So
you
we
just?
asked him if he wanted to try to do it, and he's just like, "Nah, I'm good."
Oh, it's just. So that was a long time ago then when he was actually in the band. That was probably, I mean, decades ago, right? 2 decades ago, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe a
I
little
I
more.
haven't seen Tony. Tony came and visited, and golly, I don't even know when the last time I saw him was. I
Yeah.
love Tony. Don't get me wrong. I think Tony at one point was one of my very best friends, and I don't think the band would be what it was if it wasn't for Don, John, and Tony. Like we just, like I said, we were like a cult. Like we just all we did
Yeah.
was all
That
we
was really
did. Bands would practice, like we'd practice like 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Like we'd like eat and be watching TV, be like, look, let's go downstairs and practice. And we just like practice and write. So like that's
so
all we cared about was the band.
yeah, so you guys were very rigorous when it came to practicing and then writing material basically. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But then yeah, so to go back, okay, to 2 points. First of all, because you mentioned we keep touching on that split with Hassani Saba, and I think that's
Mm.
probably my favorite release of yours just because it's so abrasive, so fast, kind of
I think it's
grindy. And
everyone's favorite split,
yeah,
except
there
for
comes a
Hassan Isaba.
oh, they don't
It's not their favorite split of ours.
yeah. Dude, I'll be honest, I actually haven't listened to their side of the split. I never got around to doing it. But I mean I should
Chad from that
like,
band, the singer, was in this band
yeah.
Puritan. Have you ever heard Puritan?
Yeah, I've heard of them. I haven't listened to them,
Oh
but
God. Puritan Officer Down split. There's this song, I don't know what it's called, but it is like one of the most brutal hardcore songs I've ever heard in my life.
yeah.
It is so good. That band was mega
Yeah,
dope.
I'll check them out. I haven't listened to them, but they sound pretty cool. And to go back to that split on your side, I mean, yeah, it's pretty grindy. There are tons of blast beats I can hear in the drums. And it sounds like you guys said that that was, or I think you implied maybe in an interview with Al Capone that that was almost the peak of an earlier stage of Usurp, in which you guys were focusing on really short, grindy songs. They weren't really above maybe 45 seconds, 1 minute, with few exceptions. And then after that, you said the sound started to change slightly because your musical interests were changing. Do you think that's an accurate way of describing it? Was that more of a standalone release in that way, or
Yeah, we were working on this album called ATM Diatribe, and those songs were longer, like much longer, and they were
much
more
longer,
keyboardy.
keyboard heavy? Yeah,
Like if you have the discography, like it's like the songs like Beard of Remoras, Mexadudes,
yeah,
those songs were that was the direction we're kind of starting to move into a little bit. But I think like I mean we like the newest record we did, Polite Grotesqueries. I think that's like what we that captures like a lot of that like Hassani type stuff with a mix of this more dark wavy, gothy, hooky type stuff. Because a lot of the stuff we have is like really sarcastic. It's like it's very almost like there's like parts that are almost like corny, like ridiculous. That's how I think we're similar to the Locust. Like Locust will like play parts you're like that sounds so insanely silly that they just did that, and then it's just mixed in with something else that's like cool or fast or heavy. And we almost used like blast beats like stock photography, right? So it'd just be like a blast beat would just be like the thing to get us to the next weird part.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was the filler stuff, you know.
Okay.
We weren't just sitting there going like I watch these kids now like bands and like they're grinding and like they've like learned how to do it on YouTube and like their hands are like this and like they're not hitting very hard and they're not sweating and like it's like
Yeah.
super precise but it's like mechanical. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, that turned into a trend. I think it's because this could be an interesting note, actually, something to touch on later as a theme. But it seems like within these types of spaces, I mean, not perhaps not hardcore in particular, but definitely metal genres like grindcore to try to bridge the gap, some types of death metal. There's almost this idea that music is kind of like an athletic pursuit in a sense. So, it's about who's the faster drummer, who's more technically scaled, who can do this, who can do that. And I think that probably manifests in what you were just talking about. Because right now, if you go on YouTube and you look up blast beat, it's guys like, fastest blast beats ever, world record, fastest gravity blasts ever. And you're right, it's not really, there isn't that much, I wouldn't, maybe not grit, but it's very precise, it's very mechanical. Yeah, they don't really show or exhibit any visible effort. It's just look how fast I can play this. So yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I agree with you on that. I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's bad inherently, but you're saying that the mindset was just different back in the day, maybe when it
well,
came
we
to
just played like
it's
I'm like again like I'm an older guy and like I play and I play I
yeah.
leave everything on the stage. When I'm done, I'm dying. Like we we don't. I I want it to be one. I want it to be entertaining, and two, like I want to be in that zone. Like I want to be in that headspace. So like and of course like mistakes happen. I mean, like the last show we played, I did something I don't think I've ever done. I like forgot a song on the set. I forgot that we were supposed to play a song. I just started playing a different song. And this is like a set we've rehearsed into the ground and I'm not usually one that does that kind of those kind of things. But I just like totally like I was so into it, I just got pumped and went and played a different song that I wanted to hear. But it was like I don't know that anyone even noticed. Like, and then we just kind of looked at each other and I was like, we'll just play it at the end of the next block of songs. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and there's nothing against that. It's just it's weird. It doesn't to me like I'd see these bands, like I'll use like Reversal of Man or like Inhumanity or Locust, like they're people just killing themselves like while they're playing. They're performers. Like, we just went on tour with this band, Miss Cummings, and their singer Chani is like every night I was just blown away by how cool and crazy and how hard she like how much effort she put into it. The drummer, Crow, every night he played as hard as he could possibly play. Like while still being really, really talented, precise, and good. Like it wasn't just like get up there and like they have like air traffic controller headphones on so
Yeah,
they can't
yeah,
even
yeah.
hear and I'm just
I've
like
seen
what is
that's
going on, man?
yeah, that's kind of a death metal thing, maybe more so. Because I feel like those guys value that, especially when you get to tech death. I mean, technical is literally in the name of the genre, which I
For
thought was
sure.
always kind of funny. But when you get to those types of scenes, that's probably more prevalent there. But to go back to that split, because I'm not really that familiar with it other than the actual sound. What was the story of that split? I mean, it seems to be pretty legendary. If you go on YouTube right now, I think that's the single release of yours that has the most views, probably. It's maybe 20,000. It might be in that range. I haven't really looked at the exact number in a while. But how
Yeah,
did
it's
that
like
one
our
come
number
about?
one songs. Yeah, our number one, like on Spotify and streaming, almost all the record is like when we like now we have this sample that's like a medley of all of our samples at the beginning of our set, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when it
yeah.
goes, maybe you should kill yourself, like that
Oh, yeah,
doorbell. As soon as that comes on, people are like, ah, like
it's pretty
because
bad.
we don't play any of those songs, and part of why we don't play any of those songs is we recorded those songs on 4 track, and it's very hard to know what the hell was even going on them, and they're so chaotic and fast. I mean, we tried to play that. We played them on the first tour. We played two of the songs, and they were like inferior to the real thing. And I was just kind of like, dude, I'd rather not play these, even though people want to hear these. I'd rather not play like a bad version of them than play them for the hope that people are like, oh, this is kind of the thing that I love, right? That I mean,
Yeah.
the a lot
Uh,
of the stuff in the band starts with these two words: "What if?" Uh,
what if? Yeah.
so, what if we did a pro suicide record with a Nike swoosh that said "Just do it," which is a friggin' miracle that nothing bad happened with we got in trouble for that, which I mean, if Nike wanted to sue us, they can have all $3 we made. Um,
Yeah,
and
that
what if we put a razor blade in the record? I believe that record was on Electric Human Project. So we were just doing splits left and right. So that like doing the shows and managing the shows at our house, we were playing, and then we'd meet a band, we'd do a split with them. We'd meet a band, we'd do a split with them, right? So and splits are great. I don't know why people don't do splits now because
yeah, they don't do splits anymore.
it's like
Yeah.
guest vocals on hip hop albums. Like that's how you to get more bang for your buck. You're getting
Yeah,
multiple
splits are great.
multiple.
It seems like they were way more common back in the day, especially in this type of music. Everyone was
Well,
doing
we just
splits.
did one with
Yeah,
Missouri, and I was stoked,
yeah.
because
Like,
like they're a great thing. But yeah, we never even like talked to Hassan. We never met them, and I don't know. I don't know what's true about this. So I'll tell you this, but so Hassan's artwork is so understated, despite how, from what I heard, their artwork was so understated, that little star or whatever, um, because ours was so grandiose and ridiculous and jokey. And someone said this to me. I don't know if this is true, and this if this is true, this is awful, and I apologize to the song guys now here 20, 30 years later. That their family had like someone guys in the family or a loved one or a friend had committed suicide really recently. Of course we didn't know that when we made the record. We were just trying to make a record that was like, the idea was, the songs are you thought you were special, you were wrong, maybe you should kill yourself. Like they had like, yeah, I think there's this one of the songs called Kill Yourself at McDonald's. Like it's the song names are meant to be, it's meant to make fun of light of something that's not funny, but also to kind of point out the irony of the selfishness of suicide, like that you're hurting other people, you're not just hurting yourself. So there's a little bit of a message in there. I don't think that message is clear to anyone, obviously, but to us it is. But it was mostly just like, wouldn't it be outrageous if we, right? If
yeah,
we
I
did
mean,
this.
what I'll say about that, there's a lot to say about this. People have different perspectives. Obviously, it's pretty much as controversial as it gets, I think, with a few exceptions. But if you go, first of all, I agree that if you go to, I think what you're referencing is early, it's related to this. If you go to the YouTube comments section for that release, you have a guy who says that he did vocals. He writes vocals for Hassan Isalba, and he says, "Oh, I think I is he. I think he says, I think I lost someone to suicide not too long ago. But even before that, I was a little bit bummed out by the album art and some of the song titles, but we never really said anything. Is that the guy that you're talking about? Is that him?
Yeah. And
That's
so
probably
that
him,
came
but
to a head
that's,
because we played a show. And again, like this is my memory of things from,
okay.
decades ago. We played a show, Alexander T from Lick Golden Sky. Alexander T like followed us on tour before he was in Lick Golden Sky. We played a show at his house in Reading, Pennsylvania. We played with Hassan, and we used to spit a lot when we'd play.
I think I
And I would fill my mouth up with water, and I would just like shamu everyone, and like because I'd play crazy, and I just spit water everywhere. And I remember the drummer, and I don't even remember the drummer. I think the drummer Hassan is like in some famous ass band now. Like I don't
Well,
know
what's the
what
band?
band.
Is it
I have no
what's
idea. I
yeah.
know someone told me he's in like a big huge band now. He was a very good drummer, and he was a
But
younger. He was.
still, is it still kind of hardcore metal
I think
adjacent
he's in
or
like a metal band now.
metal? Oh, okay, yeah.
Up his
Metal's
name, and
yeah,
then yeah, you can look that up
yeah.
while I'm talking.
I'll
Uh,
see, yeah. Yeah.
he like came up and he like spit in my face while we were playing, and then when I play, I have a pitcher of water, and I just pick because I drink so much water when I'm playing because I'm like dying, and I threw the whole pitcher of water on his back, and I said, "Look who just won the wet T-shirt contest!" And of course, getting hit with freezing cold water, and it was in winter, and I mean, I'm pretty sure he wanted to kill me. We played a fest with them where Arab on Radar was mocking them when they were playing. Like they were talking about something, a family member or something, and their Arab on Radar was in the back of the crowd, and they were yelling annoying things, and like they were like losing. Hassan was like losing their mind, and I'm pretty sure Tommy from Prevail is in that band, and we just played with Prevail over the summer. Um, we played with Prevail and Frail, which was really, really
Real
cool.
school. Yeah.
But I mean, like again, like I have like tons of respect. So I, this wasn't in any way meant to be a derogatory thing to the other band. It was just like we submitted our artwork, and that was the concept for the album. And as you know, most of the time, splits the two bands, the two sides have nothing to do with one another. You know what I mean? Like, well, you do your thing, they do their thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to whoever had that, was affected by that. But I mean, it wasn't meant to attack them or hurt them. It was just meant to be. It was meant to
Yeah.
add to the mythos of the band being
Yeah.
assholes.
Yeah. Or pranksters, maybe. I think that
Yeah,
another way to
we're
think about it. I mean, I like.
little miss imps. We were impish.
Yeah, impish. Yeah, I mean, I like that in some sense, but what I'd say is, I think there are different ways you can make sense of something like that, that type of artwork and those types of song titles. But one way to think about it is that you guys were just, like you said, pranksters, just wanted to mess with people, which I think obviously people associate that with youth, but you've got to recognize that I feel like many of the people who judge that now, they're doing that with the benefit of the doubt and with the gift of hindsight because they're probably older, but when you're in that position, and I'm not trying to excuse just bad behavior or anything like that, but when you're younger in your teenage years, early 20s, I mean, it's just fun. You know what I'm saying? It's fun to be a little bit of a prankster, I feel like, and to try and mess with people. And it's almost like some guys are just naturally inclined towards that. You know what I'm saying? And even within music, I mean, I've met many guys for whom it's kind of a part of being in a band, as weird as that sounds, but they like to mess with people and you can have fun at the live shows. And I just feel like and hardcore in particular was known for being somewhat provocative, not just in terms of the music, but in terms of, I mean, the actual live shows and the presentation and the extra musical elements. Because you mentioned a band like Frail, but I remember if you look at some of the early footage of that band, I think the vocalist, who I don't really know his name, I mean, he's just pretty much flopping around on the floor like a fish. He's getting in people's faces and he's like touching people at times. I mean, not really in a bad way, but sometimes he just grabs people's hands in the audience. And obviously, I feel like people from certain scenes would think, okay, that's just kind of crazy, that's fucked up. I wouldn't want to be touched at a show. But if you're embedded within that type of mindset and that headspace, it's just, I mean, it's just fun to be honest. And there are many other examples, but to me, it's also,
Oh, I used to play naked and all. I mean, like, there's like
yeah, it's just,
pictures of me playing
it's,
naked online. I'm like, God, like that's like stuff like you'd go to jail for now, or like somebody'd
yeah, for
like
sure.
file a harassment or. And I mean, like, it was a very different time. I mean, an insanely different time. It was a
Yeah,
lot more. I don't know. I mean, but like the main thing was like the punk scene back then. It was just like so many people pontificating and talking about things that they weren't even necessarily like. It'd be like a
yeah.
guy who, like, singer of the band owned like a BMW, and he's like talking about like Afghanistan or some shit. And I'm just like, dude, what's going on? Like your car uses diesel, like you're driving this luxury car. But it was a lot of like
Yeah.
posturing, and like we just wanted to kind of make fun of that. And like we like, I don't know if you know much about the band Inhumanity, which I think is like one of the most important punk bands
I've got to
of
check them
like
out. Yeah.
all time.
Do
Like,
they sound like Combat Wounded Veteran, that one band? Because
no,
I know
they're their own thing.
I'm
They're,
more
I
familiar
mean,
with Combat, yeah. Because was Combat also
one of the
from
best bands I've ever heard in my life, and they're one of the best live
yeah,
bands I've ever seen in my life. And I think the
yeah.
singer Chris Bickle is a genius and an incredible. I mean, like, so this guy Chris Bickle did a band called Guy on a Punchline, which was like the Kool Aid Man, but it's making fun of like the Jonestown Massacre or whatever,
Oh
like
shit.
where
Fuck.
right, like so it's like the cult leader. He's like the Kool Aid Man's like pouring the cups for people to drink the cyanide, and like I'm pretty sure that their first album, like, and like not long after 9/11 was Daryl Waltrip's car driving into the Twin Towers, and that's like what's causing the explosion. So like, people back then, like, you people would do, I mean, there was like a band called Confederate Fag, like there, like those kinds of things just weren't, but like it wasn't making fun of gay people. It was making fun of Southerners, and the idea, like putting those two very juxtaposed things together side by side, and it's just wordplay,
Is that a
which is something.
is that a play on Confederate flag? That's
Yeah.
yeah.
So like Usurp has a new song called Cowboys and Indian Food. And when people say that, their first reaction is, whoa, that's racist. And then then my and I go, how is it racist? Like the knee jerk
Yeah.
reaction is you're referencing a race of people, so you must be doing something wrong, and it's like trying to just do like a little portmanteau, like a little play on words,
Yeah.
cowboys and Indian food. They're two things that have nothing to do with one another, where the word Indian is the connector, and the irony is we're in the song title, we're using Indian the way that it's intended to be used, not the way that Americans use it to describe the indigenous people here.
Yeah.
So I mean, and like we talk about stuff. I usually will suggest, so like Antonio and I come up with a lot of the song names, and we wonder how far we can push things without getting in trouble. With or make people stop, because I mean, what really happens when you're offended? Nothing happens. You're just
Yeah.
offended. You're just
Yeah.
bothered by something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Did you guys ever get in trouble back in the day when the band was maybe at its zenith, at its peak in terms of number of shows, just playing all the time? Was there any
no, I mean, I
controversy
think
or
one of the things that where there was a lot of flack was we played a fest where we were just like walking, and I was like store, and I was like, I'm gonna buy 2 bags of flour and throw these motherfuckers tonight, and these 2 bags of flour, much trouble. It was a dollar. I spent. It was. I couldn't believe that $1.98 could do what these 2 bags of flour did. So we were playing. I think it was Wilkes-Barre Fest. This is the very fest where Arab on Radar is making fun of the Hassan guys and being mean about it. And uh, my idea was, well, we'll throw it, and like everyone's wearing black clothes, and it'll ruin their clothes, and it'll be funny. And so everyone has black hair. I mean, I was like a Spock rocker back then.
yes, Spark Rock type?
And so
Yeah.
I throw the first bag, it hits a rafter, and like the bag falls on our bass player's head, like the Pope's mitre. And then kids just go, like they go crazy because there's just this cloud of flour. Now, flash forward 10 seconds when everyone's got flour in their eyes and they're breathing it, and they're on the
Yeah.
ground coughing and grabbing their necks, and it's raining outside, so people had wet clothes on. So now the flour is turning into dough. It's turning into dough on the ground. People are sliding in the slime, and then I throw a second bag into the crowd, and it hits, and people are like trying to get away from it because it's like messing them up. And then like we messed the PA up. We ruined our instruments. We ruined a bunch of people's clothes and hair. Like the fest wanted us to pay for the PA or the mics because the mics just had like dough. And I mean, these kids were in the bathroom, like literally, I'm not being hyperbolic, like screaming, washing their face, trying to get the flour out of their eyes, coughing and choking. I mean, I had no idea. I thought it would be like snow or something. Like I didn't know I was going to throw this, and it was going to be like chemical warfare at a punk show. And I mean, that was like a thing. A lot of the stuff we did was like with shirts and like, like I said,
Yeah.
like, we
Messing
went on
around.
tour. We went on tour with Station. The guy's name was Greg. And we had a call on one of the shows where someone kept calling him Geg. They're like, Geg, this is Geg. And he's like, it's Greg. It's Greg. And so I made a shirt that just said "Geg sucks" and like wore it when we played a show with him. And like he's like, "Come on, man, with the shirts, always with the shirts." Because I just get those iron-on letters and I'd make like a one-off annoying shirt.
Yeah, I used to do stuff like that too, actually. I'd print out shirts for people with whatever they wanted me to write on it. It would just be prank shit most of the time. Yeah. I mean people like that. It's funny. It's pretty funny in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
But
really
yeah,
like honestly, it's juvenile and it's really
it's
small.
juvenile as
It's
can
not
be,
like
yeah.
we're not like pouring buckets of sheep blood on people in the audience or anything like that.
Yeah.
But these hypersensitive hardcore kids who are fake crying and like wearing choker necklaces, and they're all like everybody's like being super serious about straight edge or whatever. I mean, it's
Or the more political bands too, like are those types of bands, some of them.
we have no
Like
message. Usurp has no
yeah.
message.
Yeah. So maybe you could say that you're as far away from being like Earth Crisis as it gets. Something because that seemed to
I
also
don't
be
know
kind
any of our lyrics. I know one of our songs says battered microwave polyamorous puzzle fuck. Like, and we're still just like making fun of social crap. Like a lot of the stuff is like we'll go out, we'll do a run, we'll do a bunch of shows, and we come back, and then like that first song we play is called Previous Boner. And the reason why it's called Previous Boner is because our guitar player owns the building that where we practice, and he was talking about the previous owner, and I walked by and I just said more like the previous boner, and I'm like that becomes the name of the song, right? Like
So inside jokes are a source of the song titles in many
we have
cases.
like a song, like one of the songs in the Missouri Split. We play Marilyn Manson's "Beautiful People" at the end of our own song. We play one bar, and I've wanted to do that forever. And the song is called Maryland Mansion.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like little just goofy things like that. A lot of it was the samples. You know, we did a lot of the humor with the samples. So there was like we were trying to inject like humor into this like very serious scene
Yeah, I mean,
while we're also playing pretty serious music. Like our
yeah, the
music is
music
like
is
brutal, you know, like
yeah, I
pretty
mean
brutal.
it's not novelty music or something like that. I mean it's not like I don't know if you know, but Mr. Bungle, those types of bands where I
Sure,
mean a part of that music is just trying to be as comedic as possible. I don't think
sure.
Usurp is like that in terms of the sound, you know what I'm saying? I mean the sound is yeah, as you said, it's pretty brutal, it's pretty dark, I'd say. But yeah, that juxtaposition is interesting. And I agree with you when it comes to the fact that there are certain elements within these types of scenes that are, I mean, I'm not just gonna disrespect them or anything like that. I don't like to do those types of things, but yeah, a little bit too serious at times. And I feel like sometimes it's just kind of corny because, like you said, they're oftentimes so far removed from whatever it is that they
Well, it's
talk
a
about.
lot of virtue
You,
signaling.
yeah, it's like,
It's a lot of
yeah,
white guys with a microphone telling everyone how they could be better while, you know, like dude, this is the problem. We don't need more white guys telling people how to do stuff. This is the problem to begin with, you know. So I don't know, like the first tour we did when we got back together, we were doing that spitting stuff. Like we played a show in Toronto and Antonio spit on a kid and the kid lost his mind. Like literally was like, oh my, like he's like in between the side. Like he's like going outside. And like we got uninvited, we got uninvited to a fest for that. And like we had kind of a little bit of a band mental health moment on the stage. And then
ah,
like my cymbal fell over and I got mad and I started punching my cymbal while I was playing the last song. There's just like blood flying everywhere. Like just dumb, you know, it was a dumb moment. It was like a stressful, dumb moment. We hadn't done this in a long time. And I think like that was a show where like things kind of got a little weird. But yeah, the spitting thing, we're just like, we can't do that anymore. Like we can't, we do stuff like, so we, once in a while, our singer will say, we don't really talk, but he'll say,
yeah.
he'll be like, hey, we want to thank everyone. And we go, we want to thank Frank Fajita. Frank Fajita is our fake lawyer. And he'll look out to the crowd and everyone starts clapping and they start looking and it's just dumb. Like, why are you clapping? You don't know this guy. Like, but people, it's just human instinct to participate and be told what to do. And like we've literally
Love,
had people be like, dude, who the hell is this Frank Fajita guy? Like, you keep talking about him, and we're like, he's our lawyer, and they're like, why is your lawyer in every city? Like, so like it's just like dumb shit like that, and it's like to us, we're like laughing about it, and then you know, and I've ruined the joke now because I've shared the punchline of the joke with you, but a lot of that stuff is just to
yeah.
entertain ourselves, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's also weird too that Usurp would have been singled out for being more controversial. Or if you want to talk about, the legal aspect and all that, how nowadays you can't even do some of this stuff without facing legal consequences. Like, definitely, if you played a show naked, I think someone would call the cops. You know what I'm saying? Isn't there in the Pick Your Poison tour? Isn't there this black? I'm just saying black guy so that you can help identify him
Yeah,
as something.
Forbes.
Isn't there this
Yeah,
black guy who's naked, right? You can see his,
yeah. He's. I was
his
thinking of that.
genitals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the
Isn't
amount of
he?
times.
Who
I mean,
is?
we just went on tour, and one of the bands we went on tour, someone did some flashing, and it was an all ages show, and I was like, whoa,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like
Did you know that guy, the guy who was naked in
yeah,
the
Forbes. I'm so, Forbes Graham, I believe is his name. He
Oh
played.
wait, Forbes Graham, yeah, that's was he in a band called Coyote? Was he was it
He played trumpet too. I think
Trumpet?
he's a
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he's
yeah.
a
I think he's a
I
trumpet player.
I
He's
think
a
he was
cool
in
man.
a
He's a real cool dude.
I think he was in a band called Coyote though, right? Do you know Coyote? Maybe, yeah. They're not even a punk band. They're just all over the place. They're really experimental. But so you guys actually knew him and he was just it looked like he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
not
I'm still buddies with him on like line and stuff. I mean, I haven't
yeah.
spoken to him in years. I think he was
It,
friends with like the Page 99 guys. So
oh yeah. No, it seemed
yeah,
like he was washing or something like that, and he was just yeah, naked. That was it's funny because you only see it for a split second, but yeah, definitely. I feel like if someone was doing that nowadays, yeah, it's you'd get in trouble fast.
we
Especially
would
because I
just
feel
and
like
like
venues are different too. Because if you play at official venues, it's more it's more regulated. There's a huge difference between playing at the VFWs, the house shows where it's just
Sure.
pretty fucked. Anyone can do whatever they want, and yeah, I've seen people get naked and all of that. Versus at places like a bar, some type of not all dive bars, but any type of outdoor venue. I just feel like it's a huge difference. If you did something like that at those types of places, you'd probably get the cops called pretty quickly. But
Sure. And I mean, like,
yeah,
again, it was a different generation where people were like, hey, I'm not allowed to say I'm uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
yeah,
not allowed
yeah,
to say that. And like, that's unfortunate. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that got like,
yeah. It's still a bit,
trauma and shit from, I
yeah,
went and
especially
I got
because
talked
nowadays,
into,
yeah, nowadays, I
go
mean,
ahead.
guys bring their girlfriends to these types of shows. I saw one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. I thought it was sick. It was Jerome Stream and Elizabeth Colorwheel. You remember that tour that they did in 2023? Just
Whenever I went and
brutal,
saw him, yeah.
amazing. Yeah, Elizabeth Colorwheel, I thought, because I'd never heard of them at all. It's completely new to me. I saw them in Miami, and yeah, they just blew me away. I thought it was brutal. Some of the most brutal vocals I've heard in my life from their singer. But, I could see, honestly, you just see people dressed up like it's a date night and shit like that. You have guys
Yeah.
with their girlfriends, these older couples, and I feel like if they saw something like what happened back then, some guy just with his genitals out just swinging around, it is kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? It's not really they'd probably be somewhat uncomfortable with it. So I agree that I think it's nice that nowadays people probably feel a bit more comfortable to say, hey, this is kind of weird. I don't really want to be exposed to this. But at the same time, I agree that the element of chaos is probably something that's missing nowadays. I mean, what do you think about that? I know it's kind of vague,
Yeah.
but
I mean, it almost feels like a
it's
lot of the people come to the shows just to buy merch.
yeah, that's the
Like
yeah, the
shirts. Like I call it merch cult. That's what I call the kids now, the merch cult,
yeah, I
because
know
they
there's a
show up
bit.
and they're like, "Hey, do you have the shirt? You did a shirt that was on a Glidden orange, and it was a cotton mixed blend tee, and it had a scorpion on the cover." And but I think you only did like 20 of those. Do you guys have any of those? Do I have any of a shirt that I made that I only made fucking 20 of them from 25 years ago? Hell no, I don't have that shirt anymore. I didn't keep any of my stuff. Like, I mean, I was just thinking while I was sitting here, I used to have this Puritan shirt that I used to wear all the time. I just threw these things away or gave them away at some point because, like I didn't fit me anymore. VSS shirt that is like my only old shirt, like old band shirt. But I
It's, yeah, I
think
don't
like,
get the
yeah,
merch obsession. I don't get that at all because
I
I
think
don't
it's
even yeah.
because I
Like
don't, how old are you?
I'm 20. I'm actually very young. Yeah, I'm
You're
20.
from a generation of people where like like right now in the background the movie Weapons, I was watching Weapons on streaming, and it released today, and I didn't see it in the theater. I wanted to see it in the theater. I was willing to drive an hour to go see it in the theater because I would prefer to see it in the theater. So now it's just like everything's accessible, right? Like if I want to
Yeah.
hear a band, I just go on a streaming platform. If I want to watch a movie, if I miss in the theater, I wait a month and I can watch it, or I can watch it at home the same friggin' week that it releases in the theater for probably less money. So you're from a like we used to sell shirts for $5. We'd make patches, and like the guys in the band were wearing the shorts that were the leftovers from the pants that were cut up to make the patches. We didn't sell our record. We sold our records for $5, like our 7 inches for $5. We weren't trying to make any money and all that stuff. Like we didn't know, like the penis die cut penis record. Oh my God, that thing is so expensive. Like I have one. I didn't have one for a long time, and someone gave me one back so that I have one of all of our records. But it's crazy. Some of these are I have a bunch of the old witching hour stuff, like the Jerome's skull record,
Yeah.
the die
Orchid.
cuts Orchid, yeah,
Orchid, yeah. Yeah.
Orchid skull die
That's a
cut
good one.
record. I have a bunch of stuff like that. I don't know what it's worth, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot of like we get a lot of younger guys, younger people asking a lot of questions specifically about will we ever do this type of shirt? And like what's ironic is we made all these new shirt designs and no one gives a shit. They want all the old shirt designs that look terrible. They look terrible. Like they're like fake screen print designs. And we have a ton of shirt designs. I mean, like tons and tons and tons. And because that's honestly where the money's at. The money
Yeah.
is in shirts.
No, yeah. I mean, it seems like in general for bands nowadays, money's in the merch, definitely. I mean, it's everyone's just obsessing over how many shirts they can sell, the profits they're gonna make. Because especially nowadays, I feel like people don't really buy music directly from the artist. You know what I mean? Because who's gonna, first of all, CDs, obviously there was this transition from physical to the digital. Now But even back then, people were at least paying subscriptions to listen to, their favorite bands on Spotify or whatever, Apple Music. I feel like it's gone so far from that nowadays that you can just look up whatever you want on YouTube and you're gonna find it without even having to pay anything. I don't really know if that gives any actual royalties to the artist. You know what I'm saying? So people don't even buy CDs. Well, with some exceptions, you do have the vinyl collectors, but it seems like the trend of buying CDs at shows, because I imagine that's how you guys probably made some money back in the day, right? You'd have the actual CDs, the physical copies at
Yeah,
shows.
you'd make money by selling records. Not shirts
Yeah,
was not as big of a thing, and like most of the shows back then, man, it was like free house shows or like $5, or the person who owned the house would throw you $50 for gas. It was pay to play. Um, this last tour we did, man, it was a very different than any of the other ones we did, where like we have guarantees, and like sometimes we'll go and there'll be like food in the green room and shit. Like it'll be like, yeah, this is totally different. And I played as a musician, like as a pickup musician in New York for like bands that played legit, like legit venues and played big bills and played the late show and stuff like that. And that world is totally different. Once you do that, you're like, oh, I don't know how the hell we did this slumming it nonsense for so long.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think some of the scene is not anything like that old scene that was like probably 5,000 kids in the US that were spread all out. You'd like go to a town and the kids would look completely like the Spock Rocker San
the
Diego
stock
thing.
was out of control. Yeah, yeah.
That was
Is that
like a thing. Like you'd
yeah,
go and you'd go to a town and like the kids would all be doing some weird thing that like they only did in their own scene because they weren't there's no internet, there's no connectivity, right? So they were everything was very microcosmic and insulated. And it's like I'm not gonna be with some old guy that's like sitting here, oh, the internet ruined the world. That's not at all. But like, I mean, like I said, like started seeing when people started saying like we're going on tour, we're playing our town, we're playing 30 minutes from our town, and we're playing 1 hour from our town, and we're staying at our house every
sure.
night. And I'm like, that's not. It undermines
The
the
idea.
effort of being
Yeah,
gone for a really long time, right? And having to do that. I mean, even
yeah,
these like we just did, we were gone for 9 days, and now we say we're doing a run, is what we say. But it's like a little mini tour, you know what I mean? I mean, we drove from Vancouver, Canada, all the way to San Diego. I mean, we drove the entire of North America, basically, to play a bunch of shows. But I mean, it's not like the old days. There's things about this that are way better. I'm super grateful for the kids that are still into this stuff. I don't look down on those kids. Our shows are two very polarized demographics who want to come and see this stuff again, and they're always standing off to the side, making sure
yeah,
they don't
yeah,
get hurt. And then there's these young kids that are like crazy about it, right?
yeah,
But it's weird, like the younger kids, like the kids who were asking me a million questions at our last show at Shea Cafe in San Diego, they just stood there and like took pictures of us and took pictures of the set list, and like they didn't move or but they were like, that was amazing. And I'm like, I would have had no idea. You look like you were waiting in line, at like to get a sandwich at Firehouse Subs or something. Like you seemed bored out of your friggin' mind. But I guess it's just how some people do things nowadays, you
yeah.
know?
What was the shade like? Because that's a pretty legendary venue, I think, within
Oh, it
hardcore
was
history.
really cool.
It's
It
really
was a
cool.
really neat thing
Yeah,
to be point in life that I'm in, and to be like, how neat is it to be here? This is something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm finally getting to do it. It was cool. It was
yeah.
really
Did
cool.
you guys ever play there back in the day in the 2000s?
We
No,
never
never
went to San Diego. We played LA.
LA, yeah. It was pretty
Yeah.
legendary, yeah. I mean, it was a pretty cool place. But when it comes to the newer demographics, why do you think that there's that subset of kids that are just so obsessed with the merch? I mean, where do you think that comes from?
Like I
It's just
said,
more
I
of
think
a
it's because you come
Gen
from a
Z
generation where everything is virtual. Like you don't
virtual.
own things. Like why would you, right? You don't know what it's
Yeah,
like to walk around. Like you have a friggin' phone that's like a computer that mankind couldn't have dreamed of, 30 years ago. Like this was like the stuff of science fiction. And back then, I mean, I went in a few years ago and I literally asked, I was like, do you guys still have iPods? And they're like, we don't have made iPods in like many, many years. And I'm like, oh. Like I didn't know because I just wanted to have a thing that wasn't my phone. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to have a separate thing that wasn't my phone. And I think that's what the kids are wanting. They're wanting something that they don't need. I mean, like it's crazy to me, like tapes, like cassette tapes, which sound terrible. CDs, whatever. Like having to go and buy an old format machine to listen to music so that it sounds awful. Like sure. I mean, vinyl's great, but I mean, even back then when we were doing vinyl, no one was really doing vinyl. It wasn't like Taylor Swift and Adele are printing records every day. I'm not
They
joking.
are.
Like they're
Yeah, very
printing
soon.
at every pressing plant on in you can imagine, and it's impossible for guys like us to get anything in the queue because these big artists are using vinyl over and over and over again.
Yeah, very
So
easy
I
for
think
them
it's
to
just
do that. Yeah.
it's this idea of owning something like back hearkening to a
And it's
time
also,
that people missed out on.
you think it's also partly performative, but they just want to show, hey, I have this shirt, look at this, look at me, something like that. Do you think
I'm
that
sure there's I'm
that
sure
partly
there's a
ties into
degree
it?
of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not, there's some people who there are all these pages online and they try and make it their identity, but it just comes off as kind of corny to me, you know what I'm saying? And they say people have this term scrams now and shit like that. I don't know. You've probably seen that. Just that wasn't around.
We played with Ulf. Ulf is all about making fun of the scrams. That's their thing.
Yeah, that wasn't around back then. That term probably scrams. No, no way, right?
No. I mean, back then it was hardcore was the general
Yeah,
term that was used. And then screamo or like emo violence. Inhumanity is the one who came up with emo violence.
yeah, he died.
They made pillowcases. They made pillows. They had like Rambo on it, and it said emo violence. Like it was.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I mean, all these like subgenres. I mean, like yeah, it'd be like grindcore, but like you listen to bands that weren't really grindcore.
yeah.
Like I mean, I don't even grindcore is like an element of music, not a kind of music to me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's wrong. I don't know.
What
But
I'd
we
say is,
were.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that Usurp is really a grindcore band because I feel like if you want, obviously genres they're not completely subjective. I mean, you mentioned Taylor Swift. Obviously, Taylor Swift is a different type of music from, Usurp Synapse. Like, obviously, they have some reality, I think. They have some validity. And for practical purposes, if you say, hey, check out this band, you're going to want to recommend people similar bands that were within a similar space, sonically speaking. So I feel like for practical purposes, the idea of genre does have some validity. But you're right, when you get really precise or when you try to become very precise with it, I think that's where it starts to break down. And I feel like if you want to see if a band is part of some genre, it just probably makes the most sense to think of other bands that are undoubtedly part of that genre and then compare the sounds. But when I do that, when I think of grindcore, I think of bands like Napalm Death, Terrorizer, those types of bands. And yeah, I mean, Usurp Synapse and really any of the bands that we've mentioned is you don't really have anything to do with that. I don't think that grindcore is the right term to use, but I do feel like there were certain bands that were still within the grindcore genre, you could say, that push it a bit further and we're taking in influences from other places and we're trying to make it a bit more arty, like
For
Discordance
sure.
Axis. And I don't, do you
That's
like
who I think of when I think of grindcore.
yeah, you like Discordance Axis? Do you like that one? The Inalienable Dreamless? Do you like that album? Yeah, I think it's
Discordance is incredible. I think they're an incredible band.
yeah, they're one of my favorites. Really cool band. And another grindcore band I think is probably a little bit closer to this scene of music that we're talking about is maybe Pig Destroyer. I don't know. You know Pig Destroyer? I mean, a little
I
bit
saw
more.
them play again in 22.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah,
Pink Destroyer is great. I like that album, Prowler in the Yard. I think that's their best album. Really like it. But it's a little bit more metallic because they do have some of the beat down riffs and the mosh parts and all that, and the low chug chug, the low tune guitars. But then they have those really fast, discordant songs where it sounds like multiple guys are screaming at the same time, and it's just blast beats. It's crazy. I like that type of song. So I feel like that side of grind is closer. But you know what I heard? I actually heard that back in the day. This just from what some people told me, the grind purists who were really hardcore about that older sound like Napalm Death, the bands that were taking more so from 80s punk like Dead Kennedys, Discharge, DRI, but then just trying to speed it up and then adding in some of the thrash that was popular at the time, like Slayer, those types of bands, thrash metal, they didn't like bands like The Locust and shit like that. I've actually read that they thought that's not even grind, it's like fake grind. They called it art school grind or something like that because it didn't
man,
they
Gabe
thought they
is
were
like
trying to make
was one of the best drummers. That guy was a machine. Drummer of
yeah,
Locust, Gabe
Gabe, definitely.
Serbian,
Gabe Serbian, yeah, he's
technical, just Yeah, but I mean, it is art. I mean, like, I know this sounds corny. Like, I consider our band to be like an art punk band. I mean, we play 20 songs, and there's probably 100 plus unique parts in those songs, and the
Yeah,
average
it's
song
very
length is 30, 40 seconds long, and they're not like fluid. Like, I mean, there's like peaks and valleys and things that are disjointed. Our new thing now is like we do a lot of like really like tight stops. So like we're just playing and there's a bunch of shit going on, and like, the tempos are changing, and then it's just pop, it stops, and you're like, what the
yeah.
fuck? And then like it starts right
Yeah,
back
I
in
like
again.
yeah, I like that. It's true you guys it seems like you guys didn't use verse chorus really. You never pretty much never use that. It's more
We never, now we have like the equivalent of a chorus. Like we'll have a hook that maybe we play twice, but again, we'll play like two measures, three measures, something like that,
yeah,
or we'll play. There's a couple things that we've grooved out on, like that Cowboys and Indian song is the
yeah,
longest song. Indian food song is the longest song we've ever written. I think it's like 2 minutes and 26 seconds long. That song feels long as hell when you're playing all those different parts. Like it's just, yeah. And I mean, like we have a song called Mind Your Own Business. I'm starting a new business, which is so funny because we're making fun of the guy Brian who joined our band. That song is making fun of him before he was in the band, because he's like involved in all these different side projects. So we call him Business Head. So like that song is making for, like, he gets mad when we bring up how he has too many businesses. But like that song is really just parts. Like it's just an intro, and there's a big long middle, and then we end on the same intro part. Just a
yeah.
one of off the intro part. So like we're writing songs differently now. Don being like the primary writer. Like I don't know if you heard, we have a song called Guitar Goils Just Want to Have Fun,
I think
and
so.
that
Yeah, yeah.
song is like weirdly like rock and rolly. Like it's very like there's a grind part in it, but it is slow, mostly slow. So we're doing a lot of different stuff. I think the Polite Grotesqueries record we just did is like where we're going to probably land. I really want to write shorter songs again. Like we have a block in our set that's like we play a bunch of old stuff that's like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds long. And I really love those songs because I think if you can like kill it in 15 seconds and play a bunch of parts and like blow people away and stop tightly, that's that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, did you well it seems like also, especially if you look at some of the earlier material, it's almost through compose. I mean, not completely in the literal sense, but you just have one part and then a new part and another. It's like A, B, C, D.
Yeah, it's
Was that kind of the
yeah,
approach back then?
it's like yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know if linear. We used to say they were linearly written because yeah, it'd be like A B C D E F G, like, and then the song would end. But there's a lot of like tricky things in those because like we'll have like little pseudo bridges. You know what I mean? I don't know the musical terminology, but it'll be like pop, 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 like in the middle, and then it's not really
Yeah.
like a part. It's like a little accent part or
Yeah,
something. We
you know
do
what
a
I've
lot
noticed
of
too on the split with Sonny Salo, maybe this is kind of similar to this. On the last song, it feels like there's almost an interlude because it just goes into it's a little bit more melodic because the guitars are playing these long kind of droning chords, maybe minor key or something like that. And then you have the screams come in. Is that what you're talking about? And then after
yeah.
that, there's this break with just the keyboards doing this octave, and then it goes back into the chaos with the more distant parts. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean yeah. I mean, yes. There's like the way I play. I cannot play drums the way I used to play drums. So like
Yeah.
I quit playing drums when I was 32 because I had a career-ending shoulder injury. Like I ripped all but three tendons off my left shoulder, and so like I for a year and a half I couldn't really do anything. And I went from being this like 140 pound to like a 250 pound guy in like a year. And I couldn't play drums anymore. My only real option was to shoot my spine up with a bunch of cortisol to like block the nerves so that I wouldn't feel it. And one of the labels I played for was willing to pay to do that to keep me working.
Jesus.
But like
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and my left shoulder is numb. Like, but I've done enough
Yeah.
healing and strength training and stuff that I can play. But like, I mean, my back hurts. I can't lay. I'm a side sleeper. I can't lay on my left arm because it's just fucked from playing drums. So,
Yeah.
and it's part of it is because of playing crazy. So I'm making fun of these guys that are doing this. And had I done that, I wouldn't have any injuries.
Yeah.
But like
I
we
mean,
do some wild stuff now. Like, well, we have a lot of like chops. But like we have a song called "Drowning in a Cloud," and it's like bomb, 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 and it's just cymbal accents, and it's like a good 30 seconds of that. We would have never done that before, but we pull it off. We pull it off somehow. It just and Don's just playing this weird, dissonant, little eerie thing through this part that we play, and it's just dead simple. So I went from being this like really flashy,
Yeah.
kind of messy but flashy drummer, and now I'm like the fucking Dave Grohl of whatever it is we're
Dave
doing. I
Grohl,
just
yeah.
every
Yeah.
drummer we play with, we go on tour, will comment about how like I'm playing very solidly. Like I don't try to do a bunch of fills. I just try to do
Yeah.
whatever the song needs to do. Which before I was like,
Phil,
you
yeah,
know,
all the time. Phil's.
right.
Yeah, if you look at the set from Muno's gym, it's funny because when you talk to Hal Capone, I think you said that you never thought of yourself as a technical drummer because there's some guys in drums who are all about the craziest technique possible, fastest blast beats, the craziest fills. They want to make it as complex as possible. And then there's some who are as technically demanding as possible. And there are some guys who are more so about, feel, groove, which doesn't always apply to this type of music. But you said that you weren't really in the former camp. You said you were more of a creative guy. But when I look at some of those earlier, I mean, I'm not really a drummer, so I'm not really an expert on this, but when I look at some of the footage from, for instance, Samino's gym set, I mean, it looks like you're playing some pretty difficult parts, these fast fills, and it looks
Hell
pretty
yeah,
great.
those things were difficult. I
It's
mean, because a lot
yeah,
of those, it was
yeah.
like we played. Have you heard ologists yet?
I don't think so. No,
Oh
no.
my God, dude, there's someone to watch out for. That these guys are incredible. I mean, their
I
singer
have
and
to
their
look.
drummer, I've never even seen anything in music like what these guys are doing. Like it still fits into this world that we're talking about, but the drummer just blew me away, and he came up to me and it was really funny because he's like, man, you're playing a lot of notes, and like by that he means he's like, you're playing a lot of parts, like you are playing a ton of parts. And yeah, I mean, like I'm doing all these different, and I'm the guy. I'm trying to remember all this stuff, and they're looking at me to know when, because some of the stuff's like stops, and then we got to know when we come in, and there's physical cues for those things. So then he said, what did he say? He goes, man, I hope. And then he stopped, and I was like, say it. And he's like, no. And I was like, say it. I know what you're going to say. Say it. And he's like, I hope when I'm your age, I'm that good. And I'm like, and I grabbed him by his shirt and I said, you have no idea how good I used to be. I was so good. But part of why I changed how I played was I played in all these corny ass radio rock bands, and like I
They
played
don't.
in this
Yeah, they
punk
don't
band.
like
I played in this
technical
dance punk
drummers.
band where I just did four on the floor in every
Yeah,
song.
yeah. The radio rock guys, they don't really allow or afford any room for the flashy playing. I've noticed that. It's really just, 4/4 all the time, just super basic, kind of Dave Grohl type beats. I'm not a huge fan of that style. I like when drummers are more flashy, but I guess it's probably just more necessary for the music, right? Those types of bands, like dance punk.
Sure, but I learned something from playing those bands because it was
Yeah, yeah,
crazy to go from being this flashy, indulgent guy, and I don't read music or anything, so like I'm speaking my own weird musical language, and going in and like I played like one of this I played in this band called Elkland. I don't know if you heard of the band The Drums. They're,
no, I
the
haven't. No.
drums are like I think they're still around, but two of the guys in the drums were in the band Elkland, and it was kind of like this '80s synthy erasure, and like I would just do like the New Order, like the four on the flip,
Yeah, that
and then
stuff.
that's the
Yeah,
only drum fill that I do, like the
yeah, yeah.
like with a cymbal, and that shit up, man. It was, or I, and I mean, which is the same thing. I'm just doubling up on the hi hat, right? Like, um, those
Yeah.
bands made me start to like other kinds of music. And then I started DJing and like really started liking lots of different kinds of music. So, and then it's funny because I think I apply that era of drums for me more in what we do now because I don't want
Yeah,
to be like we play, man. We play with like Gillian Carter. Tony
yeah,
is, I mean, he's like one of the best drummers I've ever seen in my life. And he came up to me and he was like, man, he said something to me. I can't remember about like just how I play, how it's kind of almost straightforward. And I was like, dude, I was like, I'm not trying to be rude to any of these other drummers, but it feels like some of the drummers now are they're doing the most they can possibly do at all time. And there's nothing to grab onto. There's no, you're in the crowd and it's just like,
yeah, yeah,
it's like falling down a fucking stairwell
yeah.
and there's nothing there's nothing cohesive in there almost. It's almost
It's almost like,
indulgent, like
yeah, it's kind of like free jazz or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Where to go? I don't know if it's exactly like that from what you're describing, but it sounds like
yeah.
it.
We toured with Meth and the drummer Andrew is I mean, he is it's so funny. It's like if you just practice like 3 or 4 hours every day, man, you could be doing all, like crazy stuff again. And I'm like, I'm a dad. I have a career. I'm not playing doing nothing for 4 hours a day other than those two things. Like I'm not trying to play drums. I don't need to be as good as I used to be. I can be as good as I am right now, and I'm happy with that. Could
Yeah,
I get a little better? Sure, I undoubtedly you can always get better. But some of these guys, like Morgan from Missouri, Andrew from Meth, Scott from Def Club. I mean, some of these guys are just, I mean, they're just insanely talented and just
yeah,
so like I don't know that I could have done. And I play open handed, so I'm like a lefty, and so I'm right handed, but I play left handed. So a lot of the fills and stuff you can't do a lot of traditional shit that way, but you can do other stuff. That's part of why I can grind so insanely fast because you know, I'm sitting here like a wobbling side to
yeah.
side. I'm not doing
Yeah.
CrossFit.
When it comes to
So
drums and this type of music, to get a bit more technical here, are there any just trope techniques that are just really hallmarks of this? I mean, there's not a single word that you could use to describe all of it. For instance, if I think about thrash metal, which is kind of an outdated genre in a way, but people still like it. If you go to bands like Slayer, Metallica, all those types of bands, it's just that one beat, the skank beat. So ba-da, 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 and people start calling it the Slayer beat. And then death metal has its own tropes. Just they have their own types of blast beats. Nowadays, it's
there's a
with rap.
California beat, the Southern
Okay.
California beat.
The,
Ready?
that's an example. That's they just use that one all the time, basically, right? Yeah.
Like holy shit, every band from San Diego, like it must be like a like required by the state to play that drum beat in every song because it is in all that like Angel Hair and all this like old
Is
bands
it in
like
Antioch
Swing
era?
Kids. Yeah,
Antioch
yeah.
era,
All those
definitely. Yeah.
bands, that era of bands. Yeah.
They use that type of beat. What about in just in other, I don't know, emo violence or however you'd call this? Do you feel like there are any trope techniques because you're a drummer and you might have more of an insider's vision? Not really. I mean, is there anything that you just need to know? Or I've always been intrigued by that possibility.
Uh, I mean, what's weird is like when I see bands now, and I won't name any because I'm not trying to diss on anyone, but I'll see bands and they sound like it's like the it's like the Halloween costume equivalent of bands from back in the day. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
sound like they would be from then, but they're doing it now in almost this jukeboxy kind of way instead
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like that we're taking some of the sensibilities from then and we're doing a lot of these bands are kind of like that. You know what I mean? Oh, like I mean, like the like that's a
yeah,
tropey. You know, like the double palm mute thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I feel like
but
with
I don't know.
guitars, it's easier to recall tropes because, well, I'm a guitarist, and so that's my perspective. But it's weird because, and again, this ties into what we were talking about earlier when it comes to genres. I just don't really feel not comfortable is not the right word, but I feel like it doesn't make sense to say that Usurp Synapse is just a screamo band. You know what I'm saying? It just feels kind of a little bit off, because when I think of screamo, and maybe it's just a matter of geography of time about how you were touring with bands that are probably closer to that sound, closer to that scene. But when I think of screamo, I do think of certain tropes because you have the faster parts that are a little bit more dissonant, but they always throw in these more melodic type of interludes, and sometimes it's just the guitar. You'll have just the guitar, it's a slower part, minor key, and then it gets loud and noisy again. Like I feel like they do that all the time.
Yeah,
Orchid does that many times. They have that song, The Action Index, where it's fast at first, and you have the bass line, and then there's that minor key, sad, somber part that just guitar playing by itself. And then even Jerome Stream, I feel they do that sometimes. Like on the split with Orchid, in the middle of the third song, I think it's just guitars and bass, and it's kind of clean. The distortion's off, the gain's off. You know the part that I'm talking about? You remember
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
Orchid? Yeah, I feel like they do that a lot. And screamo in general is just, I feel like it's more melodic, you know what I'm saying? It's not major key, not in a traditional way,
That's what
but
I think of when I think of it.
it's minor key, it's those somber parts, it's slower at times. and it's also
It's a
not
little
as
more
spat.
heartfelt, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it's more
sincere. There's a
heartfelt.
little
And it's
more
more, yeah, it's
sincerity
way,
to
it's
it.
more sincere. It's more heartfelt, and it's also not as spastic. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like
Yeah.
from a rhythmic perspective, would you agree that the earlier Usurp songs are pretty complex? I mean, it sounds rhythmically difficult. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if, you guys are intentionally messing around with the time signatures or anything like that, like some other bands did, but would you say that's an accurate description
I
of
mean,
how you
like the ethos of the
music?
band when it comes to writing is like, what can we do that would be kind of unexpected? So if it feels like we should do something, we usually don't do it, right? Or we'll give you something you want to hear, but we're going to take it away really fast, right? So like little earworm parts where you're like, I mean, it's really funny to see people try to move to the songs, like they're like kind of, like, and then the song's over, and then they kind of don't know what to do, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't think the newer stuff. I think the newer stuff is for us. It's a little more. I mean, it's not like mainstream, but it's a little more structured. But it still has that same composition element. There's still like really unexpected stuff. There's lots of parts. It's. I mean, dynamic. I hate to use that's kind of a dumb way to use it, but I mean, I think we get lumped in with those kind of bands because we have grindcore parts. We're like a vocals optional band because you can't. I mean, what is the thing that most music that's on the radio or popular music is people can relate to the vocals. Why? Because they can talk or they think they can
Yeah.
sing or whatever, right? So they're
Recite the
humming or
words out
talking.
loud.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
can
yeah.
recite the words and learn the words, and then that's the thing they connect to. So we don't have anything you can really connect to. And I mean, it is, I've spent most of my life, and I do this in game design too. And it's funny because I finally started making games that I think other people would like. I just wanted to make shit that I wanted to make. I didn't care if other people liked it. But then we would get all butthurt because we'd be like, why aren't we as cool as this other band? Or like, why aren't we getting asked to play, this festival or whatever? And it's like, because Orchid is a catchier band.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if you look at all the bands that got back together that people are going crazy over, it's like Seisha and Loving Memory. Like, it's the more
Or
heartfelt
even
one.
Orchid themselves.
Orchid,
Yeah, that
the
was a
catchier,
huge.
more heartfelt.
Yeah, or I mean, it's not really screaming about Blood Brothers. I feel like, well, Blood Brothers it's a different example because they actually almost broke into the mainstream. Would you agree with that? Because I think they're on, was it V2 Records or so? I might be mistaken about that,
I
but
think Blood Brothers they are so good.
they're
Um,
good. Yeah,
we
but
played with
very
them, and
different though. Yeah,
we played with that band with
yeah.
the going through the twin towers thing. We
Oh
played a show
shit.
with them. I thought Blood Brothers were a bunch of 40-year-old guys trying to do like the Clash version of like, like the band The Clash, like Rock
Yeah,
Casbah. I was like, these guys are doing some next level shit. And they showed up and they were in like fucking high school. And I'm like,
yeah.
they're like 18, 19 years old. I was like, what the hell is these guys are this young and they're doing something. I mean, that drummer was like doing just, I mean, they were so, if you subtract like the guy with the stranger voice, the Rocky, whatever guy,
Ronnie. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
like the music is just really cool. I mean, like they're really, really cool. And I even like their later stuff, like the Crimes and Young Machetes and all
Yeah,
that stuff. Like,
the sound changed though, I feel like if you go to because early on it was closer to just straight hardcore. I mean, there's more scream vocals all the time. The songs aren't as dynamic, but then when you get to not just Burn Piano Island Burn, but Crimes and Machetes, it's almost a bit poppy at times. You know what I'm saying?
sure.
Because you have the
Well,
long melodic
this
parts,
adultery is right. Really had that like
that one drum
right? Like
beat.
that one beat, like it was just kind of like this upbeat tempo. That was like the stock filler drum beat they used in almost all
Yeah,
their stuff. That
yeah.
album is amazing. This Adultery is Ripe.
Yeah, I like you know which one I think is actually most underrated, doesn't really get that much love. March On Electric Children. I think it was their second album. I think it's really good, honestly.
Yeah,
It's super heavy because it has the brutal parts that people can almost mosh to, just very almost close to beat down, some not beat
is that
down,
the
but
one that has Burn
breakdowns.
Piano Island Burn?
No, Burn Piano Island Burn is the third album. So it came after that. But it's I think it was the only album that they released through 31G, which is Justin Pearson's record label. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
has a combination of the really heavy parts, but then some of the eclectic non-rock elements really started to pour in because at the end they did this song that was just a piano playing these almost circus carnival music sounding parts over to not clean vocals, but the spoken word type of vocals where it's very melodramatic, kind of theatrical. I thought that was really cool. It seemed like they liked that type of music, like dark cabaret, shit
Yeah.
like that, where it's almost like circus music, something like that. I thought that was they had that. It would bleed in every once in a while. I thought that was really interesting. It made them pretty unique. But I didn't know that you guys played a show with them. That's pretty interesting to hear. How did
We
that
played I think one show with them,
one
maybe
show?
two. I
Yeah,
remember the
that's really
guitar
cool.
they showed up and the guitar player was wearing like a blue tick shirt and I was like, "What is going on? Like you like blue tick?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love blue tick." And I was asking him like what their influences and it was like they were just totally outside of all this other stuff, but somehow they get lumped in there, right? Like they got lumped in playing a fucking punk rock show, a hardcore show.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, we want nothing more than to like. Do you like Chat Pile?
I need to check out more of their music. I know it's like noise rock kind of, right? Is that people call them
It's
noise
like
rock?
they're like to me
Right?
they're the modern day Jesus Lizard. Like it's like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
very good and they play with bands like Nerver and like Missouri Executive Order 44, but they have like you can understand their vocals, but he's kind of like shouting. I mean, we want to play with bands like that. Like we just did this tour we did with Miss Cummings, which is kind of like Melt Banana meets Deerhoof meets like God, who did I keep telling them they reminded me of? Um Gang of Four, like this
Yeah.
dance punk, but like kind of with like a zaniness to them, almost like an Airborne Radariness to them. And then
Yeah.
this band Komos, which was like this big dreamy. My headphones just
That's fine. Yeah.
like
Um,
a dreamy, like big dissonant, pretty guitars and stuff. And I mean, I don't think you could have put three more different bands together, on a
yeah.
run.
Did Usurp ever back in the day? Did you guys ever play with bands that were just radically different in terms of sound, completely different?
I mean,
What could
Seisha.
you
I mean,
from
like,
that?
what the hell did? I mean, we're like the most insincere people, and Seisha, Billy's up there like
Yeah,
crying,
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah, the Seisha's yeah, completely different world, I think. Just sonically speaking, very different band, and even thematically, lyrically, all day. Yeah, completely agree with you about that. But okay, there are a couple of our points I wanted to get to because we touched on so many different areas. But what I was trying to get at earlier was, to me, it felt weird that Yusuf would have been singled out as being more provocative, more dangerous in some weird way, where there were other bands that were actually literally endangering people who would go to the live shows at times. I
Black
mean,
Dice.
which is, yeah, I really, one band that comes to mind, I love them a lot. They're one of the first bands that really got me into this type of music. They had their time in the mainstream as well, in some sense. I think they're on Jimmy Kimmel or something, but Dillinger Escape Plan, I think I mentioned them before we started recording. They were known, and they're not, it's weird because I feel like they're adjacent to this world, but not really quite part of it. It's a bit of a different scene, like those Northeast type of bands. You know what I'm talking
Like
about?
Converge and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that those types of bands. Yeah, yeah. I feel like were you guys ever? I mean, were you aware of that type of music at the time?
Yeah,
Those
of
the Northeast
course, of
bands.
course.
You were definitely aware.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've ever played. God, I mean, we're aware of that type of stuff, but I mean, like, like I've seen Black Dice before, and the
Oh
singer
yeah, Black
would
Dice.
take the microphone and he'd let about 4 feet out, and he would just swing it and hit people in the crowd. You know,
Yeah.
I've
Um.
seen. I mean, we played we played with Missouri and Kansas City, and this kid hit a girl, and our singer
Shit.
like
Yeah.
tried to fight him, but the kid was a minor, like because this kid like hit this girl and hurt her, and he like pulled him off and was like about ready to. This kid was like real tall. He was like 6'5" or something. So he thought he was an adult that was just beating up on a girl. I mean, but
That's
I mean, I've
fucked. Yeah.
seen I've seen like bands
Crazy.
that are scary that would like mess people up. I mean, oh my God. I mean, like a lot of those like those Northeast bands, like Bad Luck 13 and like
Like the
the more
tough guy hardcore is
yeah,
that?
the more chugga stuff. Those
Dude,
shows where people
I
would
just don't like that type of music. It's just not really, it's not my thing at all. It's kind of I don't want to diss all of those guys, but bands like Terror, Madball, I just never really got into that. It's just kind of, I'll be honest, it's just kind of dumb to me because the songs are it's too simplistic. You know what I'm saying? It's a bit too repetitive, and I'm not really a mosh guy. I like the more chaotic, rhythmically complex music with the weird times and all of that, where it's just what's happening, what's going on. I like the more chaotic sound. So that just doesn't do it for me. I think you mentioned on the past podcast that it was never really your thing either, right? You just didn't
it's
really.
just like and it's very for like I don't like
like something I don't like in life is I don't like when a person is a thing. Like, and I understand that, like, it's funny. I look back, like when I lived in New York, I looked like I was waiting for Interpol tickets to drop into my hand at any moment. I was wearing like skin tight black clothes and like a button up shirt and like an ascot and dumb shit like that. And like, I very much am a product. Like now I'm like a whatever old head punk dad. I mean, I'm wearing like a band shirt right now. I mean, 90% of my wardrobe is band clothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't like when like for example, like there was a thing going on when I lived in New York City where like people were into 80s thrash metal and they tried to
Oh,
dress like they were from the 80s.
what?
And I'm just like, dude, you're not from the 80s. Like why? Like and then everything in their life was centered around being 80s centric, right? Like they had an 80s style longboard skateboard and like the hat they wore, they bought off of eBay and it was like
Yeah.
and
It's
like they wanted to
corny.
smoke a cigarette brand that was around back then. It was popular with those bands, and I'm just like, dude, you're like, it's like a cartoon impersonation, or like rockabilly or like something like that, where like
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are like, it informs everything in your life, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like, and again, I don't think Usurp like we were ever really like that. Like we were just a bunch of guys. I mean, we were kind of like we were punk kids, hardcore kids. I mean, I use the word punk as the word I use because it's just like the most generic term
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
describe what we were involved in that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I don't
And I
know.
get,
I don't like that. So like the tough
and
guy scene, like everyone's dressing the same, everyone has the same seeming ideologies. Like there's like this weird like lifestyle code that you have to follow to be a part of that stuff. And
isn't it true that it actually overlapped with gang shit, like gang scenes in countries?
I mean,
So you
who knows? I
have
don't know. I wasn't a party. I told you I heard Judge and I was like, this is terrible. Like Strife, Earth Crisis, all those bands. I thought they were awful. I could understand why people like it. It sounds mean because I don't want to be mean toward those people, but those bands just aren't very like musical to me. Like
yeah, they're not. Yeah.
there's a feeling, there's this feeling of this intensity, this heaviness. And I could imagine being a person who doesn't know a lot about music and hearing that and being like, I can't fucking imagine anything being heavier than this. Like, Universal Order of Armageddon?
Heard of them, yeah. I've never really listened to them, but I've heard the
I
name.
don't know the name of this song, but they have this song and it is one of the heaviest things I've ever heard in my life. Like when I think of heavy, there's like that Puritan song I was telling you about. There's this band that's from Indiana called Black Arrows of Filth and Impurity. They have check this out if you people listening. Pearl Harbor Necklace. I've never this song just sounds like someone like put a hook in your intestines and just drove a motorcycle and just like pulling your guts out like for like 3 minutes. Like it's just like I can't even believe this song is like a real song. It's so crazy and it's dynamic. It's all over the place. I think the drummer of the Skeleton Witch is in the band. Like,
Oh, Skeleton Witch, yeah.
yeah,
That
just
shit
like I
was
mean,
trash.
the drums don't even sound. The drums sound like you're listening to a war or something. It's just like
Yeah.
like the fastest blast beat you could ever imagine hearing in your life. Um,
What genre are they? I
it's
mean,
heavy.
what do people, you're talking about Puritan, right? That's the name of the band. Is that a
Puritan, the
what
officer
do people describe them as in terms of genre and stuff like that?
Puritan.
Yeah, like
I think Puritan was kind of like one of the like they were like a reversal of Manny hardcore. They had since the lyrics were sincere. The drummer was like a jazz drummer. He was like a classically, I mean, like he
oh,
was
that's cool.
very,
Yeah.
very good. But the music was just like heavy and just like droning
Brutal.
and
Yeah.
like, you know,
Like
it,
emo violence, is that what people would say?
I don't know, man. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
fucking know. They were a hardcore band
That's
or a punk band.
yeah,
One of
hardcore. Yeah. It's
like
just weird because I mean I guess obviously people sometimes don't want to be too precise when it comes to genres, but even hardcore itself I think it's a little bit too broad. You know what I'm saying? Because if you tell someone, oh, they ask what type of music do you like or what type of bands do you play in, and you say, oh, I'm hardcore. And if you try to avoid the newer terms like emo violence or whatever the kids come up with, they might come away thinking, oh, he likes like 80s Black Flag or some shit like that, or Dead Kennedys or whatever, DRI, Discharge, and that the problem is, I know that it's very influential and it's closely associated with the word hardcore because you could say that they came up with the idea in a sense. But I just don't really, it's an older scene and it doesn't really have, I feel like it doesn't really have anything to do with the type of bands that you're talking about. So actually, I don't use the word hardcore too frequently. You know what I'm saying? It might be different because I'm also younger and I discovered a lot of this through the internet. So people came up with their own terms later on and people prefer to use the really niche terms and they're
yeah, but which is
living
dumb because it's like how many
millions of
bands are that thing? You
yeah,
know,
I mean,
We're
People
like
now have
we're
millions of
we're
subs.
we're dream we're electric dream metal. It's like okay, can you tell me one other band that calls themselves that? Like it's ridiculous, right? It's like
Yeah,
giving yourself a nickname. Like
yeah.
you
You
earn a
know
nickname.
a really funny one. And actually, if you go on Rate Your Music, which is it's definitely a site for nerds, but I think it's really cool and people have good taste on there. And the recommendation system that they use is really cool. Usurp Synapse is actually listed as SaaScore as one of the genres. Do you have any
Oh,
opinions
I
about
would
that?
agree with that. I mean, like the music is snide. Like it's
Was that around back then, that term? Because now it's
no,
everywhere.
I've heard it. I mean, like yeah, like egg punk. I was like, what the hell is this egg punk? Like, I mean, like I hear all these terms. I don't know what's going on. Like, and like I don't really. I still love music and I still actively seek out music. I listen the stuff that I listen to. Like, if I made you a playlist, it would have nothing like this stuff. I listen to like really sad, like dark wave. Like 80s sounding.
What's dark wave? Not to sound like an idiot, I just don't
No,
really. Is it
just
like
like
synth
you
wave? Is
like
it?
Cure-ish, Depeche Mode,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
California
That's
synth,
maybe like Joy Division. Is it kind of
Yeah,
similar?
like but not real. I mean, I don't know. Like, like I like who's the bands that I love the
Well,
band.
you know, because
I
my
love the
sister
band
likes
Health.
them.
I don't think Health is dark wave, but Health
Yeah.
fits into that
No,
world.
because my sister, I think she probably is closer to this world, but MGMT, are they an
Yeah.
example? I feel like it's kind
I
of
mean, I don't know
she
what I would call them actually. Like
because she
they're
showed me that song Little Dark Age that went viral in the parent. I didn't even know that. And to me, I thought, oh, it just sounds like Depeche Mode or something like that.
yeah.
Just like someone trying to do Depeche Mode
But
nowadays.
I
Is
would
that
never. What's so weird is I love that kind of music. It's the kind like one of my favorite bands is Blonde Redhead. I saw Blonde Redhead open for Tool, and people were like booing and like, "Who the fuck is these fucking people suck? Tool, bring out Tool, right?" And like Tool fans are their own thing, right?
yeah, it's kind of.
Right.
I'm not really a big Tool guy, to be honest.
Tool
I don't know.
fans are like people who smoke like clove cigarettes, like or or
Yeah,
like it's like their own thing. You
yeah,
can't talk to them about anything because, and I think Tool, there's Tool songs I really like. I really love, and I'm not saying this because it's a ridiculous song name, but I love the song "Hooker with a Penis." That song is
yeah. I've heard of
it's
that
the
one.
only song I like in Six. I hate like I
Yeah,
hate
yeah,
the timing because it just sounds like it makes me think of pirates. Like that's always what I think of.
yeah,
Yo, bottle of rum, yo, right? Like, um, but I love bands like that are kind of like orchestral, ornate, dark, and I still love like indie rock shit. I mean, I love Sunny Day. I still think Sunny Day Real Estate is amazing. That they weren't emo back then; they were melodic. That was a
yeah.
melodic.
Melodic hardcore. I think that's a term that people
Yeah,
you like. And
yeah.
you mentioned
Sasscore. I don't. Who else is Sasscore?
no, no, that term is actually pretty big nowadays, and people are saying that there were a ton of bands that were like that in the early 2000s. I feel like people treat it as a scene, but so people associate with bands like the Blood Brothers, Swing Kids, some of the just different
Yeah,
Justin Pearson projects. Who else? I mean, some of the bands were pretty small, but again, a band that I mentioned earlier, but I think you said that you weren't familiar with them, which is a bit surprising to me. But the number 12 looks like you never you were never familiar with those guys. It's weird because I talked to the guy who's the guitarist of that band, Alex Pereira, and I just feel like they would have been adjacent to this kind of world that you were in because they were playing shows with similar bands. And I mean, if yeah, I think you should check them out. They're really cool because they had the two vocalists set up, but it was very abrasive, and they'd also used a high pitch, kind of not really effeminate, but almost sexual type of you know the type that I'm talking about. Daughters would use that
for
sometimes when
sure.
we're daughters back there, where it's like, wah, the moaning type of vocals, which some people hate. But there was many other. Oh, Black Eyes. I don't know if you remember them. They were from Washington, D.C. Black Eyes. Yeah, there are many other bands that were in this type of scene. But I think people came up with that term to describe a sound that it was still abrasive and pretty chaotic, but it was also a bit dancey at times. Synths were relatively common. Oh, another one, an albatross. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah,
Yeah, an albatross for the people would definitely group them with that label. So that's what Sass is. It's like it's rooted in hardcore, but it's even more chaotic. It's more the vocals are more sarcastic, sneering, and
yeah,
there's a weirdly sexual element in the not in an overt way, but maybe in some of the vocal mannerisms and some of the stage moves or all these gyrating on stage and shit like that. It sounds really weird and corny when you actually describe it. But I think the music is pretty good. So I think that's what that term corresponds to. But what were people calling you guys back in the day? I mean, just people have their own Just they just said hardcore,
Hardcore,
just hardcore,
grindcore.
grindcore.
Yeah. I mean, I think we got called maybe, I mean, to me, power violence, I don't even know what that
Yeah,
means.
I don't know. I've never had a clear
Heroes,
grasp
his
of
hero's
what.
gone, or I don't like who the fuck is
Yeah,
power.
I'm not familiar with. I've never really had a clear grasp of what power violence actually refers to. Any of the bands. I mean, people call Man is the Bastard. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
They say, oh, they're one of the classic bands, but I haven't checked them out. I'm not that familiar with them. What do you think though of the term and it's funny we mentioned Dillinger because people associate this with them a lot. But what do you think of the term mathcore? I feel like that's the one that
I think we get
that
called that.
one
We
you
get
get called
called
that. Okay.
mathcore because our songs are kind of complicated and, more, maybe more complicated. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me now, when I think about hardcore, like I think about like there's more of a message. It's heavy, but like there's probably more pretty. There's like a prettiness to it or something. I don't really like a lot of I mean, like I like the people we play with, but I'm not like super into those kinds of bands. Like it's not, it's just not my thing. Like I
Like
like our
which
band.
bands?
I like
Which
our
bands?
band. I know that sounds shitty, but I like our
Yeah.
band, you know?
Yeah, which bands in particular? Well, I mean, maybe like Seisha, something like that. The one more melodic.
I mean,
Some
like
more
I don't
bands.
I never like I think Seisha like offered to give me a record and I was like I'm good like I didn't like I'm like I don't need this like y'all are they're amazing, they're really cool people, but I just it's not like my thing. Like um I do like I really like Reversal of Man, like I really like, I thought the I love the Locust album with Moth Eaten Deerhead on it, the one with the little mini CD.
Yeah, I think it was
That album,
just a self-titled, maybe, right? Was
yeah,
that
yeah, that one's
um
great. I love but man, like I love bands like a lot of like I liked like I love VSS. I love the band Get Hustle, which is like this guys from Antioch era Arrow. It's like this weird like jazz, you know, noise art. I mean, it's wild. Like there's like nothing. I love the band Love Life that had like the
um,
people from Jackson in it, like I love that kind of shit. And like, but I would never want to play in a band like that. It's so
yeah.
weird. So I love the energy and I love the challenge of the music that we write, and I like writing it with these people. But I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, maybe this is kind of gross and indulgent, but it's almost like we try to impress each other and ourselves, and we don't really care about like
Yeah, yeah.
the we because we were talking about this after we did this last tour is a little rough on us, and I said, just so you know, the reason I'm in this band is because of the four of you. I don't give a shit about any of this other stuff. We could never play a show again, and if we just practiced or we wrote records, but we're all endeavor minded people. So like if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
practice, what are we doing with this thing that like we have to do something with it. So I like Missouri Executive Order. They remind me kind of Inhumanity, like the heaviness of them. Maybe they're power violence, I don't know. But like I love playing with them. I love that they dress up like Mormon missionaries with bicycle helmets and blackout masks. Their music is awesome. When we played with Meth, I mean, how funny is it that we toured with Meth and we played 24 songs in less time than they played six songs? Um, and they were just a complete opposite of us, but I thought they were so cool and so good at what they did.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoyed, and they were a band that like felt like they went in a lot of different genres. Like they were kind of
Yeah.
metal, they were kind of this neurosy, like droning,
Just
just
more
like
droney. Yeah.
beat the shit out of you with one really good part for like 4 minutes straight, you know? Uh, really, really cool. I mean, I think Def Club is cool. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
everything Justin does,
I
like
always, yeah,
Justin,
I just check out anything that he does because just because of the name. I have to see
anything he
what's he
touches
doing here.
has this signature of his that I think is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Anything that he does, I check out. Even though my favorite band of his would definitely be the Locust. I think the Locust is really cool, definitely. I mean, one of the best bands within this space. And what's interesting about the Locust is I don't know if you agree with this, but did you ever like the later material that they put out, like Plague Soundscapes? And they did another EP. It was called Safety Second Body
Yeah.
First. I forgot Safety Second Body Last, something like that. And then they had another album. It has that song AOPTK or whatever on it. I forgot what the album itself is called, but the later Locust material before they just, I think, stopped writing new songs. Do you like any of that? Because
Eh,
I love that sound because what I like is, and it's funny because earlier you mentioned that, you didn't really like the tough guy sound. You weren't super into the extreme melodic, Seisha type of sound. Uh, but how I got into this type of music is actually not really. solely through rock or metal. And I agree with you that trying to forge your identity around some genre is kind of cringeworthy to me. Like, whether it's to people who, as you stated, try to be thrash metal, they want to bring back the 80s or whatever, or people nowadays. I see these kids who say, "Oh, I'm a scream kid" or something like that, or
Yeah.
"I'm a screamo kid." It's kind of corny to me. I don't really because my tastes are also quite diverse, and I feel like most people who are serious about music, they don't really say that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've
Yeah,
noticed
but I
that.
mean,
People
music's
who are the
music,
musicians themselves, they don't
sure.
really do that. You know what I'm saying?
It's a
It's always just the
community.
fans, and it's
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 a
weird.
community thing, I think. And like I would say,
Yeah,
listen, I don't know. Like I have an 11-year-old daughter. I have a daughter who's closer to your age than
yeah.
you are, closer to my age. And she it's hard for people to connect nowadays, man. It really is
You
like
think
it's
so? Yeah.
and I think that like the kids probably latch onto that stuff. I mean, and they did back then too. It's just a way to feel like you belong, and there's nothing wrong with that. I
I
turn my
guess.
nose up at it because I want to be an individual, but like I said, I also look like I was wearing the clothes and listening to bands and doing things with my contemporaries of the time. So I'm no better. Of course, I thought I was. We all think our shit doesn't stink and we're too cool for school. And I was such a music snob, such a music snob.
Yeah, I've been like that as well, man. Yeah, I definitely have.
And but now, man, so much music my dad listened to when I was a kid. He had such good taste in like
What
70s.
was he into, in terms of his
Just
tastes?
loved like 70s and 80s rock and funk music. And I mean, like I started DJing and like I started playing in these kind of mainstream bands and I started DJing and then you have to play mainstream music when you're DJing. And I got really into like 70s, um, like 70s, 80s rock music. And like shit you'd hear on the radio. There's just so many good songs from that era. And there's a lot of like good like B-sides and things like that too. But like there's things that I just remember hearing a million times when I was a kid and I'd be like, ugh, I wish my dad would turn this off. And now I'm like, man, that shit is awesome. Like he had really good taste. He had really good, like the Daz band and the Gap band and Parliament and like um 38 special and or 28 special 38 special I think, yeah, just all these like early Aerosmith, like Toys in the Attic Aerosmith, like good ass. And I honestly listen to more shit like that than I listen to hardcore stuff. I don't listen
Yeah.
to
Do you
I don't
like some of the first funk rock bands like Parliament, the album
Yeah,
Funkadelic?
yeah, Parliament,
Yeah,
yeah, amazing, yeah.
Parliament like that.
I
Yeah.
love like I think that I love glam rock. Glam rock is one of my favorite genres of music. It's so
Is
weird.
that's like Bon Jovi or something?
No,
Those
no,
types of.
glam rock is like David Bowie and like
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe I'm
T-Rex.
thinking of, yeah, I might be thinking of hair metal. It's kind of people
Yeah,
call it
yeah,
glam
that's
metal
hair
too, but
metal, but that's even like hair
that's
metal is more like Motley Crue and stuff, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Striper,
Poison.
Def
Yeah,
Leppard, and all those
yeah, it
shit
has nothing, there's
bands.
nothing. But you like David Bowie, that's cool, yeah. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Black
like
Star a lot. I thought Black Star was really cool. But it's not really glam rock and it's way more eclectic than that, obviously. But yeah, I mean it's a pretty
one of my
legendary
favorite
band.
bands is ELO. I think ELO
Oh,
amazing,
Electric Light Orchestra, right?
amazing
Yeah,
band,
I never really checked them out,
incredible
but
band.
should definitely
Yeah.
give them a listen. It's weird though because I feel like were people ever surprised by the fact that you like these types of artists? Because I feel like many people assume that the type of music that you listen to is always the same as the type of music that you play. You know what I'm saying? Which isn't really the
I
case.
mean, I still don't know. Like Antonio and John will tell us about bands, and I'm just like, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know who that is. Like, we played a show with Missouri here in town, and of course, I was like, what the fuck? Why are they dressed up all weird? And then I listened to them, and I was just like, whoa! Like, I actually sat and listened. I Most of the time when we play shows, I don't. Most bands, I'd say I don't know, 75% of them, I'm just like, I feel like I've heard this 1,000 times. There's nothing here that's special. Like I saw that band Ologist in LA and I was like, like I came inside to get water and I was like sitting outside because, on tour too, like you want to have some downtime and shit. And I just walked up and I watched their whole set and I was just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, these kids are good. Like really
What's the
good.
genre? I don't think I've heard of them. At first, I thought you were talking about this band
Man,
Alice.
quit fucking with me with the genres. I don't know what any of this shit is. It's hardcore
And
music. They were a
I
punk band.
thought, yeah, I thought no, I thought you were talking about this band. Alcest, which is like black metal. It's probably completely different. Yeah,
It's like there's
I'll put,
like like bands who have like their name sounds like some Latin thing. It'll be like what band are you in? I'm in La Prima Zonfalhita, and you're like, what the fuck is that like on a menu at a Turkish restaurant? Like
yeah,
there's like a million bands with that kind of a name,
yeah,
right?
Sweet La Lune, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
some
yeah,
pretty name, like a pretty name, like it's like a
yeah,
French
pretty.
sounding name or a Latin
Yeah, I feel like
name.
screamo bands do that quite a lot nowadays, especially
Our name
if
is ridiculous. Our name is ridiculous. It's just two words that I smush together and like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean anything.
you know
And
what's funny? I used to think that okay, I'm probably just too analytical about this at times, but I used to think maybe it's talking about uh chaos and disorder, usurping the brain's control
well,
mechanism.
there was an element of
Is
that where we said we
is
were
that
trying to subvert people's expectations. So the music is like so all over the place that it's like messing with your ability to anticipate. But like, I don't know, it's almost like it's like the first time I heard, so when we were on tour with Seisha, two of the guy, or one or two of the guys in Seisha were in Interpol, the original
yeah,
Interpol.
I've heard of that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And like, I remember they told me the name, and I was like, that is the dumbest fucking name I've ever, Interpol. And now when I hear Interpol, I don't think of what I thought of when I heard the name, which is like you'd watch a VHS tape and there'd be this like Interpol warning if you like copied and pirated the movie. Now Interpol is its own thing. Like they took that word and they're bigger than the concept of international police now, at least in my mind they
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how
No,
cool is that? Like,
they probably are. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like, listen, man, we've played with so many cool people, and I mean, the main thing about all this stuff to me is the people element of it. Like, not to
The
get
people.
sappy, like, this guy Crow, the drummer of Miss Cummings, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. I meeting him was one of the best things that's happened to me this year, like hands down. And I meet a ton of people. My job is a very social job, and I'm a social person. And it just, I'll never forget this guy. He gave me he gave me his Arab on Radar T-shirt at the end of the tour, and he's
Yeah.
just like, I want you to
Oh
have
wow. Yeah.
because I told him about Arab on Radar in like the 90s or some shit, and he gave it. And I'm just like, how fucking cool is that? Like, Arab on Radar is still one of my favorite bands. Big, huge influence, right? I mean, and like, again, they have those like squealy guitars and those kind of like pounding drum beats and stuff. Um, and we've met so many cool people. And even if I don't like I'm not trying to diss on Seisha. I think Seisha is obviously
They're good
super
at what they,
important.
yeah, very good
Like,
at what they do, definitely.
yeah, in loving memory, Brian and Jen, like they're amazingly cool people. Would I play in that band? No. Do I listen to their band? No. But it's not for me. It doesn't mean that the music's bad. It's just
Yeah. Not really
I'm
your
not the
thing.
target audience for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you think about Orchid? You ever, because I know you mentioned that they were
I'm
more
not really like I kind of was like I don't get it.
yeah, for some
But
reason
again,
it was
like
extremely popular, even with outside of this world, maybe Screamo. I mean, you got guys who just wear that shirt and
good for
get
them.
shows.
I mean,
Yeah, it's good
and
for
you'll get
them.
into these conversations sometimes. It'll be like, I don't like your band. Someone will be like, I feel like you don't like my band. And like sometimes people will confront you. I'll be like, I don't like your band. And they're like, why do you need me to like your band? You're way more popular than what we're doing. Like, who gives a shit if I like your band or not? And again, Jay, I lived in New York. I'd see Jay around. Like I have respect for what they made and what they built. And like, if anything, I'm jealous. I wish I could play weird ass shit and a bunch of people loved it the way they love that band. But I don't I I played in bands that were mainstream bands, like when I lived in New York, other people's bands, and it isn't the same feeling. I remember I played a show one time, 8,000 people in front of
Wow.
8,000
Yeah.
people, which is a lot of people. And I, I think that was the time I wanted to get up and walk off the stage the most I ever wanted to, ever. And I've never felt that way once in Usurp, where I wanted to get up and leave.
Yeah.
Because
But why
every
was that the case? It's just you
because I'm
didn't.
playing with like my best friends.
Yeah.
Don, the guy in I'll never have a friend like Don again. I'll never meet somebody when I'm 15 years old and move across the country with him. And, he's got one of his kids is named after me. I mean, like, I will never replicate that relationship ever again in my life. He's this guy's family. He's more than family. All the guys, me and the singer had a huge falling out. We didn't talk for almost 20 years, and I love him. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. I realized when we got the band back together, I didn't even really know John. John and I were in the band from the beginning, and I treated John like an employee in the band. Like I didn't treat him like a person. And so part of what I want to do now, being in the band, is to be like family. Like that's what matters to me, you know. I don't need this band. We're making a little bit of scratch off of it, but it's not, shit, it barely pays for itself most of the time. But
Yeah.
I'm super grateful that people still care. It's a crazy thing to say, I did this when I was your age, which sounds really dumb when I say that. And then and then I come back to it as this older guy and it's still there. And it
Yeah.
still has meaning. It has more meaning now than when
Yeah.
it did when we did it. And we didn't know we were a part of something that people I honestly thought that shit was like gone the way of the dinosaur. Like it was just it died off. It was such a small scene, an insular scene, you know. Um so yeah, I mean I'm super grateful that we can do this and that people care. I mean, it's the small victories. Like we met a girl named Kaylee, if I'm saying your name wrong, please forgive me, in LA, and she like bought everything we had on tour. And she was like talking about how she saw Seisha and she saw all these bands, she saw Jerome's Dream, and she was like, but you're the band that I never thought I was gonna get to see. And she like asked to take pictures, and then the guys are all tired and stuff. We kind of want to leave, but I'm like, come on, man, we gotta go. And like she hit us up on Instagram, and I'm just like talking to her, and she's just like this, she like cares tremendously about like what we've done. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't understand why. It's almost like musical gymnastics. Like the
Yeah.
songs are just these, if anything, they're very cerebral. I don't think
Very cerebral. Yeah.
they're not
It's just,
emotional.
yeah, it's
Or
not
if they
really
are,
heartfelt. You're not going to have these sections like the ones in Seisha in which, the guy's
yeah,
just screaming his heart out over the twinkly guitars and, or, what you hear in like Midwest emo or something like that, which seems to be more popular nowadays. You're right. It is more cerebral, I'd say, definitely. It's
yeah.
cerebral and it's noisy, I feel like. Noisy, I would say, is a pretty accurate descriptor of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, but the feeling, I mean, if there's a feeling, it's like, I mean, there's like the newer stuff we wrote, there's some like eerie shit. Like we played one of these songs, one of the people that was in the band's like, man, every night when you play that song, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like that one riff at the end is so creepy. It's just the creepiest riff, and it's just this little short amount we do it, and that makes it even creepier, right? So I don't know. I mean, people do things for lots of reasons, and like I make
Yeah.
board games because I want to replicate things that I love in that format, stories and
Yeah.
ideas and stuff, capture them kind of in amber in a game. And
Yeah.
this
That's
this
interesting.
band to me really is just about the people and like
The people are important.
making stuff that we're proud of.
Making things with other people that other people will start to care about. It's interesting. Did you, after the band broke up, because when exactly did the band break up for the first time? Like mid
Like
2000s?
2001, we were getting ready to
Oh, early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Like
were getting ready to go record an LP with like in Nebraska with like the singer of Cursive or someone from Cursive. And this was the ATM Diatribe stuff, which was going to be like an LP. It was like, a lot of songs. And we got into an argument. And at that time, and I won't single out the member, there was a member of the band who, anytime there was a problem, they would threaten to quit the band. And I was just like, you know what? I quit the band. And then, at the time, and I say this with no arrogance, I was kind of
yeah.
the leader of the band. I was the one that booked the tours, and I was the composer guy, and I was the one that was like having the people come and play with us when we lived in Lafayette and stuff. And so I was like, well, I'm going to teach him a lesson. So I quit the band, and then the other guy, and like it was really actually terrifically selfish of me because I made a decision for for five other people. And then the guy who quit, of course, didn't want to really quit. But I'm just like, I'm not going to be held emotionally hostage. And like at that point, I started moving into games and I was just kind of like, I had
Oh,
this whole other
yeah.
life with games. And I was just like, man, fuck this. I don't want to be part of this whiny hardcore crap anymore. It's annoying. I regret it. I super regret it. We like Clark from The Dream Is Dead had already paid for us to record, and I don't think he got his money back. And that was I saw him 2 days ago.
Oh,
uh,
wow. Yeah.
yeah. I Happy Couples Never Last. We did
Oh
that.
yeah, legendary label, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Clark,
So
amazing guy.
yeah, so you guys were actually scheduled to do a tour. You're going to do one. We're slated to do one,
We're
but
gonna
then you
record
broke
an
up.
LP, and then yeah,
Oh,
we were
yeah,
talking about doing bigger stuff, and like we were just kind of naturally. I think back then we would have had an easier time breaking into a different scene because things were so
yeah,
less labeled. The labels were broader back then. And so we were kind of moving in a different direction. And I think we might have been able to do something more substantial. And then it just died. And then in 2004, we got asked to play Dude Fest. And we were doing that band Fax Arcana at the time. And
yeah.
then we got back together and we wrote it was like four of us did it, I think. And then we wrote A Vile Contamina, which we just released on record finally, like when we got back together, like when we first got back together, which I think those are some of our best songs, honestly. If that's the sass core of the sass core, those really just like ridiculous. Like some of them sound like little things you'd hear at the end of like a sitcom when something funny is happening.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
we did that, and we played a show with Reversal of Man, and uh we played Dude Fest, and then that was it. And then we I lost touch with basically everyone but Don.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So
But then you from there you moved into session drumming basically, right? You were playing for other
I
bands.
was a pickup
That's
drummer.
when
I
you
didn't
to
I didn't play on records. I played live. I was what they call a scab drummer, which is like
gab drum. Yeah,
I'm the guy you call when someone gets fired or quits or goes to rehab or dies or,
whatever.
goes
Yeah.
to jail. Like I'm the
And you
guy.
were in New York City at the time, right? This is in New York, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So was it true that dance punk that was the popular style at the time? Everyone was trying to do
Yeah,
dance
that's like
punk.
when that Block Party album, Silent Alarm, came out, and like that's
Yeah.
like Phoenix put out, shortly afterward put out that like Wolfgang
So
Amadeus.
were you playing for those types of bands at the time? Was
I was
that kind of
playing for bands that played with those types of bands.
yeah, bands
For
that played
bands
with
that were trying to get to that level but they were still playing with those, and I was playing like clubs and stuff. And then the last band I played in was a band called Lola Ray, which was, I believe, Dave Matthews Band's manager's other act, which was like this kind of this indie emo band. They were really good. They were really good, and they didn't end up keeping me after the tour. And I toured with them for a very long time, and it like kind of broke my heart. And then I hurt my shoulder, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I played in like some boy band that like Jessica Simpson's manager was trying to create like the equivalent of like a dance punk in sync, and I like had a rat tail that he thought looked cool, so he like picked me. And I briefly played in a band that was going to have the guitar player from Block Party in it, and this girl that was like a pop singer, and I was the drummer, and we only had two songs. And I did a bunch of corny stuff,
then
corny
is
stuff.
it true that you met Elton John? I remember you
I
said you
know
said
Elton
that.
John
How did
one.
that happen? That's crazy.
He was
That's
just backstage, like, and he was
backstage.
friends with
Yeah.
Pete Shelley from Buzzcocks, and he was just hanging out. And I didn't meet him; I was just in a room with him. I think
Oh,
he was
interesting.
randomly in San Francisco, and we were in San Francisco, and he knew Pete Shelley,
Yeah.
both English. Um, yeah, I mean, like I did some cool
Um,
shit. Like I did the '88 drummers thing on
oh,
08.
yeah, that's cool.
One of those
Is
tours.
this like a drumathon? Is that what they call it? You just
Yeah, it was like the
guys.
Boredoms.
Yeah, and it was in New York City, correct?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, I did
yeah.
that. I got a bladder
Because it's funny,
infection.
Wikipedia says that you were involved with the boredoms for some reason. Is that true or no? Because I don't think it's I
No,
couldn't
I
find
did
evidence.
that. I did
No,
that.
I
That's all
couldn't
I
find
did.
evidence of that anywhere that you ever were played, were a member. That's I don't know where that came from.
No,
No.
I just played in the '88 drummers thing. I got asked to do it. I mean, which is really cool. I didn't know how cool that comes up a lot actually.
Yeah.
I got like a bladder infection because I had to pee so bad. I was like literally trying to figure out a way to pee while I was playing. My body wouldn't do it. And then I like afterward, I had to like pack up afterward, and I ended up getting like a bladder infection. From
Crazy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went and saw the band Hercules and Love Affair right afterward.
That's cool. And is it true that you also met the drummer of Discord and Saxes? That guy Dave Whitty or whatever his
Yeah,
name
he
is.
was. I thought he was a part of that, I believe.
Yeah, he was a part of it. That's great. Yeah. But then what happened? Because I think you implied earlier that you eventually just left the more left music for a while, right? Is that because you injured your shoulder? Is that Is
Yeah, I
that
injured
kind
my shoulder. It was really weird. I injured my shoulder, and like my friends in New York kind of stopped being friends with me once I couldn't play music anymore.
crazy?
Wait, how is me not being able to play mean that we can't be friends? Um, and then
How did that shoulder injury happen, if you don't mind me asking? Well, just
I just repetitive motion injury, and then
oh, okay,
I moved
yeah,
in with my girlfriend at the time, and I picked up a nightstand, and I just popped all the tendons on my shoulder, and like literally, like my arm just was like
man.
gone.
Where does that come? Just from playing drums, or like where does
I
that
don't know
come
if you've
from?
ever seen how I play. I overplay. Um,
Overplay, yeah.
and
Crazy. I
yeah,
had no idea that that could happen just through drums. That's weird.
well, I mean, I played at that point, I'd played drums for 17 years. So, I've beaten the hell out of my body and not taking care of myself. And then, thinking I'm young and immortal. And then boom,
Yeah. And so
not.
then you pretty much stopped playing for a while, or you just kind
Back
of
to school.
went
I
back.
had a bunch of weird, like, I'd worked on a movie
Oh, that's cool.
to get made, and then the housing market crash happened, and all the funding for the movie got pulled. And so, I had a bunch of, I almost got on the TV show Survivor at one point.
Oh wow. Oh, it's
Yeah, no, that story was,
that's wild. Yeah. That's pretty
um,
big. Did you feel a bit I know it's maybe a
yeah,
cliche question, but
lost.
did you a bit lost or confused
Yeah,
at times?
I went to school and I went to NYU and took classes to get like a project management certification. And then Don was working as a lighting engineer at the time with
Yeah.
an event company. So I went and I worked in the office there. And it was I've made money like in weird ways my whole life. And this was like the first jobby job I'd had. And I did that for a couple years and I hated it. And then I just went after board games and I, I, um, I wanted to. I love music. I honestly feel like it's something I'm meant to do, like I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do. But it's just the lifestyle of it is just
And it's
I
yeah.
wanted I was like partying too much and I was like, I was like every tattooed guy cliche in New York. I was like drummer, DJ, freaking bartender, and I was just becoming kind of a jerk. And like I met the woman who I ended up marrying, my daughter's mother, and she just was like, I don't really want you to do this stuff anymore. And it was my out. Like, so I just kind of leaned into that relationship and I tried.
What does she mean by this stuff? What is that
Dude,
just
I was
confused?
like drinking
Oh,
every
okay. So
day.
not music in particular, just other
The
kind of
nightlife, New York nightlife
oh
stuff.
nightlife shit.
It just
Yeah.
was like yeah. And the thing is like I've never done recreational drugs. I've never smoked pot.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was a vegetarian almost half my life. Um, I've never smoked cigarettes. And so like I started drinking when I was 27 and then I just got like super into like working into bars and like staying up late and like I mean it's a hell of a way to make money. I used to work like 2 days a week and I was making like $70,000 a year, which in New York
Yeah.
is like
Probably
$30,000.
yeah, probably a big
Um,
chunk from the Usurp days. I can imagine that probably wasn't that profitable, right? I mean if
no,
at
but but then
all.
my life just became something completely
Yeah.
different. Like, now that I'm playing with the band again, these guys, like I love these guys so much. The Brian, the new guitarist, he actually was one of the owners of the board game company that I started that we sold. He was
Oh
in
wow.
that.
Yeah.
Brian has some like, association with gaming and stuff too. I mean, we're all older now and like everyone's got stuff going on, families and kids and careers and things, responsibilities. But yeah, I mean, like Usurp is like I mean, honestly, it's like a massive part of my identity. Like it's a big part of who I am. It's like something I made that I'm really proud of. I'm proud to be in it now. It's it's a it means a lot to me when people say they care about it. I, we kind of thumb our noses at, like that's our thing is like we don't give a shit, but we do care. Like it means a lot to us that people care. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh man, only like 50 kids came to the show." But then like you talk to this one kid who's like I talked to a kid, he's like, "I have 20,000 plays of your discography right now logged." I'm like, "What?" The whole
Yeah.
thing? He's like, "Yeah, the
I
whole
mean,
thing."
to me, well, even if it's just 50 kids or a small number, it's fine if they're very passionate about it. I mean, obviously, this type of music wasn't really bound to reach a massive audience anyways, because sometimes, you know, there's a guy, I don't really want to name names, but there's a guy in this band that's very popular right now. It's not really metal, maybe metal adjacent, but he said that he said like I used to be in metal bands before realizing that it was a dumbass idea because they don't make money or some shit like
Yeah.
that. And I just thought, what does that even mean? I mean, is that really, if that's the intention in the first place, it's just dead. It doesn't really mean anything. I feel like that doesn't make sense. I mean, it should be about the actual content and the sound first. I feel like
It's really
people
hard when you
don't,
make money though. Like when
yeah,
you make money. So like my first gig in New York, like I got paid $727 a week no matter how much I played. And the band I played with, like the fucking bass player of the Smiths opened for us as a DJ on tour. Like, we're like playing with the Rapture and like just cool bands, like I mean crazy shit. Like Boy George opened for us at this like random little secret show we did. Boy George. Why is Boy George opening for this band of, kids who don't even probably know who the hell he is. Like
yeah,
wild stuff. And it's hard when you get to, like you get to stay in a hotel every night. You have a van that's brand new. Like you have a per diem that you get to eat food and I had a wardrobe allowance in one of these bands. Like there's it's hard when you do that to be playing in a band like now. Like this last tour we did was like not an earner tour because it was just for whatever reason. We'd play a lot of weekdays and stuff, and it was a learning experience. But yeah, like it's hard to go from that to like you know playing for free or being like, well, I guess I'll fill up my own gas tank and
'cause I
use
imagine that
a
when it
bunch
comes
of
to some of those
miles.
house shows and VFW shows, people probably didn't even really have to pay in order to enter sometimes, right? I imagine some of it was just free probably. Because if I look at house shows nowadays, I mean, there aren't really many where I live, but I'm very good friends with a guy who's in a couple of bands in Richmond, Virginia. And Richmond, I don't know, have you ever been to Richmond? Is that, you ever been
Is that
there?
where
Because I think
Paige is from?
Page 99 is that,
Yeah,
yeah, they're from Richmond, yeah,
yeah,
because it has a pretty huge music scene. It's a
yeah.
really cool place for music. It's definitely better than Miami, which is kind of screwed up when it comes to finding cool music because there's too much, it's too much electronic dance music, DJ type of shit. I'm not really into that.
True.
Not to sound like one of those types of guys, but it's just not really my style, not my thing.
Look, I'm
So
from Florida. I think Miami is mad corny, so you don't have to convince.
yeah, yeah, it is. It has many. Well, you guys played it, and now that you bring it up, I have to ask, what was it like to just come here to play at Gramps? Well, any notable?
Oh man, I love that band, Tabien. I thought they were good. They were
Yeah,
cool
they're
dudes.
they're a Miami band. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they were cool
Um,
dudes. Yeah, it was
it's
fun. I mean, that show was killer, man. That was a great show. The
yeah,
sound guy was just like in the bathroom doing cocaine. Like every time I go to the bathroom, he's just like he's like like trying to control the panel and shit. It was like real
yeah.
wild.
What do you think of what
Yeah,
do you
that
think
was
of
a good
Miami?
show. That was during the hurricane and stuff too.
Oh
We were
yeah, yeah,
there when the double hurricane happened.
yeah.
The two
What's
back to back hit Florida.
yeah, yeah. Remember? And what about the city? Which is kind of my place. What do you think? Yeah, it's a corny place, man. It is. You're
I mean,
right
I've
about
been in
that.
Miami a bunch of times. So like the biggest board game reviewer lives in Homestead.
Yeah, Homestead.
He
Yeah.
moved now, but he lived. So I go to Miami all the time. I go to Miami for work, or like especially when I lived in Tampa. I drive there all the friggin' time for work. It's fine. I mean, it's just like I'm not. Yeah, it's like it's. I'm not like the beach is nice. It's the only beach on the Atlantic that I think is nice. Honestly, like if you go to Jacksonville, it looks like porta potty water or something. It's
Yeah, it's trash, especially.
disgusting.
Yeah, it's just trash, man. Yeah.
But it's just like this corny, like it feels like Europe and like the 90s or something. I like just a lot of corny, there's a lot of like corniness to it, There's
Yeah,
like this weird juxtaposition of tourism and like weird cheesy beach culture-y shit going on and like,
yeah, bro.
people
There are
drinking
tons
out of
of there.
pineapples and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's worse. We have tons of scammers, man. It's crazy. It's like scam central, and in the downtown areas, every second shop is just some guy selling fake phones that don't work, fake shoes, fake sneakers, just fake products and everything. It's really weird, man. And a lot of them aren't even supposed to be in the country. You know what I'm saying? It's like guys who are just pretty much criminals that are making it. They actually look wealthy because they stole items, and it's weird, man. Yeah, it's a weird place. What was so now it's more, I guess, more of a personal question. What was Indiana like? How did you end up in Indiana actually?
I'm
I don't
still
know.
here, bro.
We're still,
Um,
yeah, we're still here. Yeah.
so my family is originally from Indiana, like my whole family on both sides. So I was
Yeah.
born in
Yeah.
and I grew up in Florida. And then I'd kind of come
Yeah.
here as a kid. We didn't really go anywhere. I think like once when I was a kid, we went to the Smoky Mountains, but we'd always just go to Indiana because my family was here. My parents' families were pretty much here. So when I got out of school, I wanted to move, but I didn't know where I wanted to move to. So I just was moved to Indiana because I had a couple aunts that live up here and I really liked
Yeah.
them. And I had some cousins and I was like, hey, so I came up here and I started. I mean, John was already living here, Tony was living here, Don moved up here. I got a bunch of people to move to Indiana
Yeah.
that
And,
lived other places. But Indiana
and
is like now it's fine. It's a nice place to live. It's a big city. It's like 14th biggest city, I think, in the US. It's pretty nondescript. I live in like the very far north suburbs, basically, like kind of a rural area. There's cool shit to do, like
is
where
it
my
and
company's
and
office is.
Usurp formed in Lafayetteville. Is that what it's called? In
Yeah,
Lafayetteville? Yeah.
yeah, where Purdue
Yeah.
University is. Yeah.
Near Purdue, yeah. And is was there ever a music scene? Is like a music place? Because I feel like some towns in America are known for music, even if they're kind of small. Nashville.
Lafayette is where Axl
Yes.
Rose is from and the singer Blind Melon is from, and I don't know that there's shit else. We might be the third, might be the third most known people from
The
there. I don't
third
know.
most known bands in Indiana. Yeah.
I mean, like it was a college town, so there were a lot
Oh,
of kids, but like we'd play with like there was like a pop punk band. I think they were called like the Nincompoops or the Ninnies or something, and they would
oh,
like play shows at our house and like bands started kind of becoming like that scene, and then people would drive up from Indy, obviously, because it's only like an hour away. And back
yeah.
then, it wasn't a big deal. You drive 5 hours to go see a band play that you liked,
Mhm.
and it wasn't a big
Yeah.
deal.
But probably not a huge music town in particular. Something like Nashville or something like that.
Nah, Indy is a very like metal town,
Metal. Yeah.
metal, and like it used to be like Christian hardcore, Christian
Oh, yeah, yeah, that type of music. Yeah.
Zao, which I think Zao is good as fuck, so that's fine. But
That's good. Yeah.
yeah, like we don't really like fit in here at all. Like we have a hard time here. Um, I think we feel that we are different here more than anywhere else. So yeah, we look back, even though we didn't sound like race band, man, I'd kill to have a brother band like that again that we could play with that was around here. Um, but yeah, there's some cool spots. There's a really cool spot called Healer. I'm gonna go there on Tuesday and see
Yeah.
Missouri and Hers Collective is playing.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
so
venues in particular that are well, is you mentioned that one, but any other like legendary venues? Miami got a place called Churchill's Pub that was just huge. So many bands played there. Tons of
Melody
great
Inn
venues.
is a thing that's been around forever. There used to be a thing called the Emerson Theater. I think they started doing shows there again, but the Emerson Theater was like an old movie theater where they did shows at that like, man, I've seen so many fucking bands. I got touched by Jared Leto at that place. Like I went and saw 30 Seconds to Mars with the bass player's girlfriend. No one wanted to go with her, so I went with her, and then he was like walking through the crowd touching people, and I was one of the lucky people that got him to touch me. I was like,
Crazy. Yeah. So no,
yeah, Melody Inn. There's a cool place here called Black Circle that's like does.
yeah,
I went and saw Nerver there not long ago.
yeah. That's cool. So, okay, to get back to the narrative that we were reconstructing in a sense, just because obviously, we've been going for a pretty long time, obviously, so I don't want to push it too late. Obviously, we
Yeah,
have
we just go a
own
little bit longer.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
But to go back to just pretty much the story of your life, as weird as that sounds, at least in some limited sense. So after the shoulder injury, you took a bit of a step back from the musical world. Is that an accurate way to describe it? What was happening? Like kind of
Yeah,
moved
yeah.
out of
So
it? Or-
I just kind of stopped playing music and like it just
Yeah.
wasn't really. And then I went whole hog on gaming and like I mean like
Yeah,
look,
so well, I guess what I was going to ask you
all
is,
these like board games.
yeah,
So
what I was going to ask you. So how did the board game career happen? How did you get into that? I don't really know anything about that. But it's interesting to me. So
I mean,
yeah,
I've always liked games. I've always been like a nerd. Like I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and like I hid Dungeons and Dragons books under my bed, like pornography. And I've played Magic the Gathering. I still play Magic. But I don't go and like play like the way people normally play. Like I play on my phone. So it's something that I always was really interested in. And like, my grandmother would play games with me all the time. We'd play card games and Scrabble and I have a lot of fond memories of that. And so it was just something that I had always kind of thought, wouldn't that be cool if I could do that? And then I just finally got to a point in my life where I had enough money that I could like not work and figure out how to do it. And I happen to live in New York. And again, like so much of my life is just like being in the right place at the right time, like luck. Um, so yeah, I just kind of fell into it. And
And it's
I moved
also,
back here from New
yeah,
York to start a company with me and Brian from Usurp and a friend of mine who I still work with now. And everything just, we made a game and it did well on Kickstarter. And then
yeah, yeah.
I've worked on like 100 and I don't know, over 100 games.
Wow. And
I got
so
a game.
has there been any overlap between that world and the music world in terms of people that you work with or not really? So you mentioned that guy, Brian.
There's one guy that's a hardcore kid. His name is Matt Fantastic, and he's from New Haven, Connecticut, where I think Jerome's is from. He knows Jerome's, and he played in a bunch of hardcore bands, and he knows about this stuff. I don't really know any other people. I've met a couple people who like Usurp, or they found out about Usurp, and they like board games too. Very rarely. It doesn't ever
Oh, yeah.
come up that I'm a musician. I mean, it's the type of thing where like, I've been making games for over a decade, 12 years, and like no one really asks me about, they don't give a shit about that part of my
Yeah.
life. Just
They
like
just,
the music
yeah.
guys don't. I mean, like I talked to Jeff from Jerome's and he's like, "Oh yeah, I play board games." And he like mentioned a bunch of board games. Like board games are a lot more popular now. Like the nerdy board games are like Hobby
Yeah,
Lobby,
I feel like
tabletop.
they're more
It's
popular. I was never a huge board games guy, but the one that I like what is it? Catan, Settlers of Catan.
yeah, Catan, yeah.
Do you like that one at all? I feel like it's fun to play from now on.
Yeah, yeah. It's I haven't played it in a long time. Um, but yeah, I mean that's like a very well-known gateway
Yeah,
game as they call them.
gateway, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
what types of games do you work on in terms of board games? Is like
I have a game that just funded on Kickstarter right now. I'm known for making sandbox games, like open world games.
same.
So like kind of like video game, cardboard video games, basically. Like where you
Yeah.
can kind of just do whatever the hell you want. I'm known for that. That's my kind of,
Yeah, so you have characters and it's like an open world,
yeah, you
right?
just you can go do whatever. You're like go fight people or get resources and buy stuff, and there's all kinds of different ways that you can win the game, and they're usually like pretty grandiose and complex and um but yeah, that's kind of my wheelhouse. That's what I've
Yeah.
settled into doing.
So
But
that's what
it's
you've been doing for
Eric's.
about a decade or so, right? That's the new.
Yeah, I
Um,
2010 was when I had said I wanted to start doing it, and didn't make any money doing it till 2014. But I'd already kind of that was my career path at about 2012.
yeah, that's cool. And then so okay, so you're doing that for a while. Weren't really probably deeply connected with the music world, but then it seems like you reunited Usurp obviously. So how did that reunion end up happening? Because it seems like it's been
That House
also
of Bone interview was the big part of it. We were
that.
talking about doing a band without Dawn called Website. We'd like it's like one of these. We always joke about like band names that we think are funny, like Receipts or Website, just like a really nondescript name. And
Yeah, yeah,
and then after I did that, I was like did that interview. I got like real nostalgic and I was like, man, why don't we just do Usurp again? Like this is stupid. And we talked to Don, and Don was living about 90 minutes north of here, and it just all happened real fast. I mean, the biggest barrier to entry was Antonio and I weren't talking. So
mhm.
Antonio, I had done him dirty on the discography. I uh I got mad at him because he was taking a while to do his part on the discography, and I pulled his vocals off and I pulled his name off the album, which was terrible. No, it's one of the worst things I've ever done in my life. Like
Yeah,
he moved here to be in the band. He was a part of the band. He was an important part of the band as far as like his personality and
yeah,
like Antonio's thing is like he just is he's like a very well connected guy. He's a New Yorker. He's but his personality is a big part of the ethos of the band. So yeah, I don't know. It was like the first time we had ever had an opportunity to make some money, and I got like greedy and I got shitty with him, and I pulled him off the discography, and I didn't even credit him, and it was terrible. And he hated my guts for years. And
Mm.
Yeah, and I was so happy to hear from him and talk to him. I mean, trust me, I had to take my lumps. He laid into me, but once we cleared the air there, we're good. Like everything was good, you
Yeah.
know.
Was there any geographic barrier in the sense that you guys live in different parts of the country? Was that a problem at all, or
Um, well, so so three of us live here. Antonio, me, and Brian live here. Don lives in Tennessee now, which is harder. It's going to make things harder because he's 5 hours away instead of 90 minutes away. And John lives in Chicago, which is like 3 hours away, but like still has a lot of friends and family and stuff here. So like there's reasons for him to come here. So now Don being far away is going to be the new challenge of things. But I mean, it wasn't really that problematic for us. We would go up
yeah,
to
yeah.
Don had this really big cool house in Fort Wayne, and we'd go up and we'd play music and hang out up there and stuff. So, and like when we get together, things happen real fast. You know, like we're
Yeah.
working on an LP now.
Oh wow. And so when it comes to practicing, how does that work? Do you guys meet in person or do you send each other tracks through through online messages, email, something like that? Or is
Yeah, well, we try to do that. A lot of it is like me and John kind of laying the groundwork, and Don will kind of. But I mean, Don is like really quick. Like most of the time, Don's first try is the try that ends up in the song. So, um, yeah, he's a pretty brilliant. Everybody in the band is great. I think Don was meant to play guitar. Like that is his
that's
purpose
his
in
pers-
life.
yeah, that's his
Like,
purpose. Yeah. And I mean, now that we're at the most recent stage, I feel like that's actually a perfect segue into the last couple of questions I'm gonna ask
sure, sure,
before
sure.
So, and it's not really rapid fire because I wrote down that there were some topics that I wanted to touch on that we brought up earlier. I was motioning towards, we didn't really get the chance to expand on them. So I'll bring them up now and then just some final questions I thought would be interesting. So first of all, I mean, maybe probably the most relevant question. So what's USURP doing right now in terms of just plans for the future, what you're working on right now? I mean, what does it look like? What's the gist of it? That's it.
I mean, we just got back from this tour. It was a bit of a learning experience for us, and I think we're still kind of like we have to figure out how we do the band with Don. We want to do an LP. I mean, what the band wants to do is we don't want to play, and this isn't in any way trying to sound arrogant. We want to kind of break through into another scene.
Yeah,
We don't want to just be a screamo, scrams, hardcore band forever because we don't really feel like we ever really were that. And so now that we're
yeah,
older, and I feel like our writing is a little more sophisticated and it is a little more listenable. Um, we want to try to figure out how we could be like a chat piley type band, you know?
yeah, yeah,
So how do you do that when you're playing 30-second songs, 40-second songs that are, and our answer to that question is we want to, and it's funny you mentioned Dillinger. We want to make our set more like our live performance more immersive.
hmm
So we started doing lights, like we always do green lighting when we play, but we started doing samples and the samples
Sample.
worked out great. John before was just doing noise and it was just like chaos. And then, and it was also just like too much extra responsibility because like the noise thing could break or not work or so now we have pedals and we have this whole thing set up and I do the samples and it went pretty well, I think, considering we had never done it before and we only had 2 days to learn how. But we're talking about like integrating stuff like video so you can get more of the attitude of the band, like kind of the weird attitude of the band. And I think John's like the video again, if you haven't gone to our Instagram, like go to our Instagram, you can see all these weird ass videos. John uses all this like stock footage from like the 1950s from like weird like educational and medical videos and it's like really strange when you put it next to our music. So I think that would be cool to do that and like we want to work on an LP and I think like you know the joke we make is we shit excellence. That's what we say because we
Yeah,
just write songs. I mean, like we just write songs really fast. Like those Hassan songs that everybody loves is didn't take us long to make those songs. And we still write really fast. But my question was, what happens if we actually took our time instead of being like, someone wants to do a split, let's do this. Someone wants us to do an EP, let's do this. So we were like just writing for records. I'm like, what if we took a time when we did like our version of like, like an album, like a band's famous album, like I can't, for some reason I can't think of like if we did our Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness of the Smashing Pumpkins,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
or whatever Siamese Dream, like a record we're super proud of that we put a tremendous amount of effort and work into. Like, what would happen if we did that? So the first chat, like we already have a label. We've already been talking to a label that's like a pretty like a great label for this kind of music. And we want to just try to see if we can elevate things and try to bring our music to a different group of people and hopefully more people and
yeah,
not just be pigeonholed as being like, now, again, thank you, Screamo kids of the world, for loving our band. But it's when we play with these bands that are like, pretty bands and stuff like that. I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make
it doesn't.
sense.
It doesn't. You're right. And does
Right.
that describe the approach to the new LP? You said that you're working on a new LP. That's it's
Yeah.
gonna be more in that vein. That's basically that's the approach.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
listen to the last two things we did, the Polite Grotesqueries and the Missouri Split, like that's
I need to check it out. I've spent more time probably in the what was it? I think it was a complete discography or something like that.
we just redid the
This Symphony.
discography on vinyl, but like minus 10 tracks because it couldn't fit on two LPs, all of them. I mean, but we had a 60 song discography.
Yeah.
So we just did a vinyl double LP discography. We've got that split with Missouri, which is great, and then we did a 10-inch on Council with called Polite Grotesqueries. And even that, like we tried to do some pranky shit. It was called the original record was called Ass to Ass, and it was the Mona Lisa with a unibrow, and she had ass, and then like the Roman numeral two, and then ass. And the streaming platform said it was profanity and vulgarity. It wouldn't allow us. And the background
Wow.
was just like hamburger
Yeah.
meat.
What's the platform? Is it Spotify or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
no streaming service. Nothing would allow
oh,
us to use that cover art.
nothing.
And then
Wow.
and then the labels we talked to we're like, this is too weird, it's gross looking, we don't like it, so we had to like dumb it down a little bit. So we just did the spine, which has always been our symbol for the band.
Yeah. Don't you guys have shirts merch with the spine on it? I
Yeah,
think.
we a bunch of us have spine tattoos. I
Yeah.
think three of the five of us and two of the other guys had spine
Well, I mean,
tattoos.
it makes sense because if it's usurp synapse, the spinal cord is it reference that as well? Spinal cord is connected to the synapses in the brain or something like that.
I
Or,
don't really know why we made it a spine, if I'm being honest. I think it was just
yeah,
that was
kind
like
of.
our icon.
Yeah, it makes sense if you think about the name, but I mean, maybe I'm just thinking too deeply. I guess it could just be a coincidence, but that's what came to mind for me. And you guys are making guitar picks now too. Is that right? I thought that's
Dawn
cool.
made guitar picks. Yeah, Dawn did
Okay,
an
yeah,
album called Adult Adoption. Like we did the Usurp Synapse was like which was a bunch of our friends, and then Dawn did the Usurp Synapse again. He did a record on his own. So yeah, I mean, like, what's in the future for us is we're talking about doing an LP, and we're talking about trying to, we're trying to get representation for booking and things like that. And we just want our set to be like a killer set. Like when you watch us, you walk away and you're like, I saw something and felt something really cool. You don't need to understand the music. We'll make you feel the
yeah.
weirdness of it. So we've gotten really good at
That's
like making our set feel cohesive and cool.
mm,
And I
yeah.
think we can take that to the next level.
Are you guys signed to a record label right now? Any
No.
no, it's not. It's more independent. Is that?
Yeah, well, we work with like The Ghost is Clear, Zegama Beach.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I was going to ask you about Zegama Beach because they post. I love them. I love everything they do, and they post videos of your songs oftentimes on YouTube. I just never knew if you guys were actually connected with them, if it
yeah,
was.
Zegama did the discography. I believe Zegama did the discography. God, I can't even fucking tell you. Sorry, I
Yeah.
don't even have one. Um,
But they're connected, definitely, right?
yeah, Zegama did the tape version of the ass to ass tape version of Polite Grotesqueries, and then Council did that. So yeah, we've talked to some other labels that are like that type and stuff, and these people are cool, and we like working with them. So um, it. it's neat to have that kind of relationship because like we had that really close relationship with a lot of the labels like Alone Records and Witching Hour, obviously. I mean, we owe so much to Witching Hour. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
Witching
think
Hour,
they put out the split between Orchid and Drone Stream, right? The Skull split, is that the one that they put out? Yeah.
yeah. And they did our
And
Dream Split, and
but-
they did
and you
our
guys were also on Happy Couples Never Last, is that true?
yeah
That
with
one?
Clark. Yeah, we did that.
That was kind of a Midwest label, right? Midwest based. Yeah. They were great.
Electric Human Project.
Yeah, that's cool. And for the next couple of questions, I'm gonna speed it up just slightly because I'm running out of battery here actually. So I need to,
Oh,
ensure that the I can actually save the entire recording. But for the next questions, to touch on what we brought up earlier, I thought it was interesting. So we were talking about how it feels like Usurp Synapse got grouped in with the screamo sound, even though they're pretty different sonically speaking. It's kind of a weird combination. And then we were trying to name, or at least I was trying to name bands that I thought were more similar because you guys have a pretty unique sound. So the Locust came up, we kind of agreed on that. But then I had two other bands in mind, and I feel like one might be more expected than the other. So the second band I was going to talk about that I actually have some funny lore to share about, I guess, but was Daughters. I felt like Daughters was the band that was actually pretty close to you guys, sonically speaking. I mean, with at least the early music like Canada Songs, right? That album in 2003. I feel like, I mean, this reminds me the most of Usurp because I mean, there are many blast beats, but it's super abrasive and never really lets up. It's the
Well,
high
their
pitch.
song names sound like our song
Yeah,
title.
this song names like, the long kind of silly names. Also, the guitar sounds I felt were pretty similar. That guy, he had a really unique approach to guitar. He doesn't really play riffs. There are no riffs, there are no breakdowns.
Like
It's very high
textural
end.
stuff.
It's on the higher parts of the fretboard, and it almost sounds like an alarm or a siren that's just going off. I feel like that. Where you guys is that a comparison that you think makes sense? To
I
me, it's
mean,
the one that
so
um
well, first of all, I think like Daughter's later stuff, like the last two albums, are awesome. I was not a fan of the Canada Songs and Hell Songs. They're fine, I guess, but we, yes, thought that they were like a mix of us and Locust. Like that's, and we actually, when we got back together in 2004, we made a bunch of merch that was making fun of them. So it was like the name, how their name is on that like rainbow or whatever on that first record.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
did our name coming out on a rainbow, coming out of a urinal with eagle wings. And it was meant to like make fun of them for what we thought was jocking our style. And we had played with like As the Sun Sets, which I believe is guys from Daughters.
yeah.
Now,
It was like the Proto Daughters band. Yeah,
but that's the thing we want to do what Daughters did, which is Daughters started off as this one way and then they broke through and became their own thing, right? Like, and
yeah.
that's like, so like mad respect to Daughters. I know they've got some not great social situation shit going on with
Yeah, it's pretty fucked to say the least. Obviously, I'm not going to touch on details, but I think everyone knows about that. But is it true that, or at least people who are familiar with the scene probably know about it, but is it true that I've read somewhere there was a bit of a beef between the two bands? That it always sounded a bit made up, but is that true at all?
I've never interacted with anyone from Daughters.
No, there's no,
I
but
saw them play in Brooklyn once and I thought they were amazing. And um yeah, I mean like I think
maybe way back in the day, more so the Canada Songs era. Because I don't know, there's
we
this
made
forum
fun of them. We made fun of them because we thought that they kind of took our
like the
like
sound.
well, Locust has like a similar thing with us too, where like how they use blast beats and they'll do like a wee 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 like they have these kind of like stock parts in their songs that they use as bridges to get to other parts. And it felt like they were doing Daughters was doing a version of that, I thought. Kind of this
Yeah,
alarming
there's
squeaky
it's just
guitar.
kind of a yeah, and that sound style of guitar that I really like the alarm sound
Yeah.
almost. I bring them up because there's this it sounds like such a dumb reference, but I don't know if you know this forum called Cross My Heart with a Knife.
Uh-uh.
It's it's supposed to be for people who like this type of music. And they trade tapes. They did all the tape trading back in the day. I don't know if it's very active nowadays, but there were guys on there who were saying that there was some type of drama, and I thought, it's probably just made up shit. I guess people just make shit up. I don't really know.
I mean,
You know,
Daughters were infinitely bigger than us and more successful and crossed through the membrane to another scene. And I mean, we, I guess, tried to pick a fight with them with this thing that we made, but I don't know that they ever even knew it. We never said anything about it. We just made it. And then people would be like, this kind of looks like the Daughters logo. And we're like, yeah.
Yeah,
Again, like
so
we just make shirts and shit
yeah,
to
so
press
I
your.
guess some guy just amplified it, or he doesn't just making shit up. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know.
people like to say that that's the case because people are addicted to drama and conflict and that. But
Never
if
had any beef with any. No, there was never any open anything. I mean, like the probably the most confrontational thing was the Hassan thing, which they never even talked to us about. But it was known that it was an issue, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But what about the daughter? They had a song called Jones from Indiana. Was
Yeah,
that, did you guys think that that was a
yeah. I was
reference?
like, what's going on here? Yeah, of course I noticed that, and that's very much like Locust and Usurp both have kind of the way we name our songs. Locust songs are really long, you know. Like they're
Yeah, very
much
long.
longer than Usurp songs, but there's like this tongue-in-cheek kind of playfulness to them. And so yeah, I always wondered that specifically if that song was like a jab at us or a props to us or what it was, but I don't know, you know.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, no one in Jones is just some placeholder name. So Daughters is okay. It's one potential point of comparison. And another band, I don't know if you, I actually don't know if you're familiar with them, but I think they're relatively influential. And I just thought that they sounded pretty similar. People don't really talk about them, but there's this band called the Sawtooth Grin. Are you familiar? You've never heard of them? Yeah, they had it's weird because they also played shows with that other band that I mentioned back in the day. Not back in the day, but the other band I mentioned earlier, Number 12 Looks Like You. So maybe they were from Montrose, New York, which is upstate New York. So maybe that was just more of a Northeast scene. But I think you should check them out. They had this album called Cuddle Monster in 2001, which I felt was very similar, like very similar to this type of sound that you guys were playing back in the day. Because it's short songs, there's tons of blast beats, it's super high-end guitars, but the vocals are crazy because they're insanely high pitched. It's not like the mid-range that I think John probably uses. It's so high pitched that it sounds almost like Mickey Mouse or some shit like that. Like Jacob Bannon from Converge, how it sounds.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's using effects. It's like that, but they made it much more high pitched, and it's such that to the point that it sounds like it's pitch shifted. It's really weird. I've never really heard vocals like that in this type of music, but I think they just reminded me of you guys. So I thought, so you've never heard of them. You got never really no interaction with that band. So that's interesting. And maybe just people arriving at similar sounds. But those are the three bands that remind me the most. I mean, if I had to ask you that question, who did you guys think you ended up being most similar to in terms of sound? Like even if you weren't consciously thinking about it, because you had a pretty unique sound back in the day. So
I think Erebon Radar pushed us to be more
Paramount Radar.
abrasive and like Erebon
Yeah.
Radar, I didn't understand why they were playing with hardcore bands like and they were like they seemed like they were older guys too, so it was even weirder. I think Erebon Radar definitely. I think VSS influenced us because like the really dark, kind of gloomy little parts that we have are almost always feel like that band in my mind. And I love that band. That's like one of the biggest, that band left an indelible fingerprint on me and my tastes. The album Nervous Circuits. If you haven't listened to
That's
that album,
VSS, right? That's
you should listen to that album. That is an
I'll check it out.
important album.
Definitely.
Um, I mean, like, you know, Don and I love like, God, like what are some other, I mean, like we loved like US Maple and like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. They were a Skin Graft Records. I think it's a
mhm.
really
Yeah,
cool
I
label.
mean,
Very, very
I
cool.
love Jawbox, like
Mm.
Jawbox is, I mean, it's funny, like some of our newer stuff, we were talking to a buddy of ours that used to play in bands, and he was like, you guys almost have like a weird snapcasey, like little snapcase moments now. But I think what he's trying to say is that's more like the we like Fugazi, we like Jawbox, Discord Records type shit. So we'll have like grooves that feel like they're grooves. Like we have like grooves in our songs now. They're very short, but they are for us, that's unusual. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Jerome's when we
Yeah,
met Jerome's like the way that they did their songs, it was very bashy and like the guitar was like this dissonant sound. So I felt like they were
yeah.
someone that
And
we
you
had.
obviously there was a legendary tour, and you guys had a split as well, so they're pretty adjacent, I guess, in literal
Yeah,
terms. Yeah.
but I don't know. I mean,
So
no one
I mean,
else.
no, I'd say that you ended up, or you converged towards I mean, no pun intended, you converged towards a pretty unique sound, I'd say. Like that's, I think, and most people seem to agree, there aren't really, because if you bring up Screamo, I mean, everyone associates it with, Orchid, that type of sound, Seisha, and I feel like many other bands try to do what they do, in particular. I think you've
Sure.
probably noticed that with some of the newer bands, to the point like where, as you stated earlier, it almost sounds like they're doing a jukebox retro nostalgia version of this. Kind of like how you have Greta Van Fleet, which is just, literally trying to rip off Led Zeppelin and milk that nostalgia. No one really tried to do that with you guys, or I think with that type of sound at all. So I mean, maybe it's something to be proud of. I don't know. It depends on where you think pride should even come from. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up that aspect of it. And then a couple more questions. I think one or two are probably more specific related to these types of themes, and then the last two are just more general because I thought they were interesting questions. But is it true that you guys played a show with Love Lost but Not Forgotten from Missouri? Did you ever play
Yeah,
the show?
yeah. Yeah, they
Because
were
I thought
buddies
they
of
were,
ours.
yeah, I thought, and they were also on that record label, Happy Couples Never Last.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
were buddies with
I
them.
thought that they were sick. I mean, I think they're very underrated, to be honest, even within this world, because their self-titled is just so brutal and dark. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's,
crossed
yeah.
paths with Grady from that band in New York a couple times. Like we were both kind of moving into the more mainstream music. He was like a
Oh,
sound tech
really?
for this band called Night
Yeah.
View that we
What
ended
do
up.
you think of their self-titled album? You ever listen to
Oh,
that,
they're
or is it?
great. There were bands that we like Force Fed Glass. I love Love Lost. I thought they were really cool dudes. Like
Yeah. You
cool
know what
dudes.
stood out to me about them that I feel like people don't mention enough? It's the vocals. Like the vocals are crazy.
Yeah,
Literally sounds like a guy being killed at times. It's just
yeah.
so, you can hear the soul.
Uh-oh.